harder. Today is about reaching out, because strength is not just in endurance, it is also knowing when to let someone stand with you. And that is our message today. It will take us into the 6 a.m. news this morning, after which we're back with a bit more for you here if you stay with us.
It's 6 o'clock. We're coming to you live from our studios here at Adisawe Kanda. This is a 6 a.m. news here on 3FM 92.7. Coming up this morning, Minister for Interior imposes dawn to dusk curfew on 11 communities in the Gushegu district after 5 communities were banned. Also, government announced fuel reduction takes effect today. And much later in this bulletin, the University of Professional Studies confers a lifetime achievement in law award on veteran lawyer Chachu Chikata. We have details of our headlines and other stories. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. I am Enyunam Haligana. We're going to our first story where the Minister for Interior, on the advice of the National Security Council, has ablaze following clashes over the enskinment of a new chief in the Yidan community. Government has further urged chiefs, elders, opinion leaders, youth, and the people of the area to exercise restraint in the face of challenges confronting them, as well as the use of non-violent means to channel their energies into ensuring peace in the area. In late August 2025, northern western Ghana experienced a sudden break of inter-ethnic violence that has escalated into other and one of the most significant displacement crises in the recent years. Now that's a developing story, and we'll bring you updates on that in a subsequent bulletin. But moving on to some other stories now, and the government has announced fuel reduction will take effect today. The government has absorbed 2 Ghana cedis per litre of diesel and 0.36 pesos per litre of petrol as part of measures to cushion consumers against the rise in fuel prices. Spokesperson for the Ministry of Energy and Green Transition, speaking on Hot Edition, clarified that the fuel reduction is not a subsidy program.
We must be very clear that this is not a subsidy program. This is not a subsidy program where the government is going to take fiscal cash or money from somewhere and to be able to support the price of petrol or diesel. What the government has done is that if you look at the price build-up for petroleum products, we have the cost of crude and cost of petroleum products, which will be cost of crude and the cost of finished product. You have the exchange rate, which plays a significant role, and you have taxes, margins, and levies. What the government has done is that it has taken a hit when it comes to the margins, and it's been innovative enough.
We heard that the spokesperson for the Ministry of Energy and Green Transition, Roxanne Richmond, there. Meanwhile, the Ghana Private Road Transport Union says it has no intention to increase transport fares after Ghana government announced the fuel reduction. Here's the General Secretary for the Ghana Private Road Transport Union, Godfred Abubire, speaking to 3FM.
The issue is not actually supposed to be enough, but it's a relief of what would have triggered off fare increments. It's a relief that would have triggered off fare increments. So it's a welcoming news, and then we actually applaud government for taking this decision. That has been our position right from where the fuel prices started surging. We have said that when fuel prices were around 16 and brought down to 12, and even petrol around the single 9, we only had reduce fares by 60%. And then the committees and then the general public were urging for additional fare reduction, and then we did not listen to that.
That was the General Secretary for the Ghana Private Road Transport Union, Godfred Abubire there. Now, away from transport and the fuel, the Office of the Special Prosecutor says it will challenge a High Court ruling that questioned its authority to prosecute certain criminal cases. The office insists the decision by the High Court goes beyond its jurisdiction, arguing that only the Supreme Court of Ghana has the power to declare part of the Act of Parliament unconstitutional. The ruling delivered by Justice John Yante Nidu ordered the Attorney General's Department to take over prosecution in the case of the Republic versus Issa Seidu and 3 others, widely referred to as the Rice Scandal case. Meanwhile, private legal practitioner Martin Pebu said the judges may have different interpretation of the law.
It's good this ruling has come at this time. The judge's decision can be supported 100%. But remember that the people saying the opposite, they too, you can support their decision 100% in law. That is how come we are saying that. So then, what is the law? Is what the person who has authority to decide says is the law. In other words, yes, the lawmaker is the judge. Other lawyers can have different opinions, and it's not that they are wrong.
Was private legal practitioner Martin Pebu there. Now we're going to politics, where the opposition New Patriotic Party is accusing the National Democratic Congress of orchestrating a pattern of intimidation and political suppression. The party says recent arrests of its members and affiliates point to what it describes as a deliberate attempt to silence dissenting and distract from key national issues. Here's the General Secretary of the New Patriotic Party, Justin Frimpong-Kodia, addressing journalists.
Concerns over political arrests have been mounting in recent months following a series of high-profile detentions involving politicians, former government appointees and activists across the country. Several individuals, including former public officials and NPP communicators, have been picked up by state security agencies over allegations ranging from financial crimes to offensive conduct and social media-related offences. At a press briefing, the NPP General Secretary Justin Frimpong-Kodia accused the government, the Ghana Police Service and the judiciary of carrying out what he describes as unjustified arrests aimed at silencing dissent and diverting attention from national concerns.
We have witnessed a situation whereby several people expressing their views, their sentiments about certain ill activities and certain decisions undertaken by this government have been arrested, detained, and sent to some courts. We want the NDC to understand, and I'll re-echo what I said in 2025, that no condition is permanent.
The party is also demanding the release of its Sunyani East Communications Officer Abubakar Yakubu, who has been arrested for false publication.
That was a report filed by Deborah Abba Mensah. And finally, before we go, the University of Professional Studies Accra Law School has conferred a Lifetime Achievement in Law Award on veteran lawyer Chachu Chikata in recognition of his exceptional contribution to the legal profession and Ghana's constitutional development. Chachu Chikata has been involved in some of the country's most significant constitutional and public interest cases. His work has left an indelible mark on Ghana's jurisprudence and legal education. He spoke about his wrongful imprisonment in 2008.
In fact, political affiliation, settling political or personal scores, or wanting to show where power lies should not be the reason for criminal prosecution. Not even for a criminal investigation. In the end, on 30th November 2016, I was acquitted on appeal. Earlier, the Supreme Court had ruled that the IFC does not have the immunity that the High Court judge and the Court of Appeal had claimed it had. A judgment that was delivered by the inimitable Justice William Atuguba.
That was veteran lawyer Chachushi Kata. Well, a big congratulations to him as the University of Professional Studies Accra confirmed a lifetime achievement in law to him. That brings us to the end of the first half of this morning's bulletin. For more news, please check our website at 3news.com. I am Enyunam Haliga. Michael Udu comes your way with business.
Follow us on social media. Twitter at 3FM927. Facebook at 3FM927. And also on 3news.com.
Hello there, good morning and welcome to Business News on Sunrise. Coming up, consumers across Ghana expect to enjoy fuel price relief from today as government's temporary pump price intervention takes effect nationwide. Meanwhile, Africa's Sustainable Energy Center, ASEC, welcomes government's fuel price intervention but argues petrol prices should have dropped by at least 1 cedi to deliver real relief to consumers.
We feel the government could reduce it a little more further. We were calling strongly for at least 1 cedi reduction on petrol. That was what we were strongly calling for.
And producer price show mild pressure as mining eases and transport costs decline in March 2026. I am Michael Obodu. Details of these and many other stories lined up for you. Do stay. Thank you so much for your time. Straight into our top story. Motorists, commercial drivers, households and businesses are expected to experience some relief at the pumps from today, April 16. This follows government's decision to absorb part of the recent increases in petroleum prices triggered by volatility on the international oil market. There is more in the following 3 Business News Desk report.
Under the new measure, government has absorbed 2 cedis per litre of diesel and 36 pesos per litre of petrol in a move aimed at easing the pressure of rising transport fares and business operating costs. The decision comes after recent increases in global crude oil prices pushed ex-pump prices higher in Ghana, placing an additional burden on households and transport operators. Officials say the intervention, which has been approved by Cabinet, will remain in place for 1 month while authorities continue to monitor developments on the international market. Many commercial drivers and commuters are hopeful the reduction will translate into lower transport fares and reduced prices. The measure forms part of broader efforts to maintain price stability, protect livelihoods, and support the country's economic recovery amid external shocks.
And that was a 3 Business News Desk report. Meanwhile, energy policy analysts say government's latest fuel price cuts fall short of expectations despite a reduction in pump prices announced on Wednesday. The Africa Sustainable prices were reduced by 2 cedis. The center says the measures, though welcome, do not go far enough to ease pressures on consumers. The reduction approved by Cabinet is aimed at cushioning households, transport operators and businesses from rising costs linked to tensions in the Middle East. The intervention is, however, temporary and will remain in place for just 1 month. While analysts acknowledge the relief provided, they argue more aggressive measures could have been implemented to better protect consumers.
We feel the government could reduce it a little more further. We were calling strongly for at least 1 cedi reduction on petrol. That was what we were strongly calling for. And then the government did 0.36, which we think we accept it, but then we think the government can do better. Yeah, the 1 cedi war levy has to be taken off and then subsequently scrapped. We've been talking about it since last year.
Meanwhile, the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana, COPEC, says the drop in diesel prices exceeded expectations, offering some relief to commercial transport operators. But it is urging government to be transparent about the specific taxes and levies that were adjusted to achieve the reductions.
In the spirit of transparency and accountability, one would have expected some breakdowns be provided. Unfortunately, you are given lump figures, and so what constitutes the 2 cedi, what constitutes the 36 pesos, you are not told. But we will keep pushing for these specifics.
Looking ahead, the Africa Sustainable Energy Center is calling for a more diversified energy mix to help shield the economy from future global shocks.
We need to diversify it. If we're having luxury of a lot of solar and then wind energy in the system, if there are any fluctuations within the oil and gas sector, we don't find ourselves into some of these issues. And then within the transport system as well, we have to introduce a lot of electric vehicles so that if there's any future, in the future, if there's any fluidity within the oil and gas sector, we wouldn't will not find ourselves wanting. So we are calling heavily in investing strongly into electric vehicles as well.
You heard the engineer Justice Ohene Akoto. He's the executive director of the Africa Sustainable Energy Center, ASEC. Earlier you heard Duncan Amwa, executive secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana, COPEC. Now, still on fuel prices, the Ghana Private Road Transport Union, GPRTU, says the government's announcement of a reduction in fuel prices has halted plans to increase fares. The union's general secretary, Godfred Abobri, says the development is welcome news and a major relief to transport operators.
The issue is not actually supposed to be enough, but it's a relief of what would have triggered off fare increments. So it's a welcoming news, and then we actually applaud government for taking this decision. We have said that when fuel prices were around 16 and brought down to 12, and even petrol around the single 9, we only had reduced fares by 60%. And then the committees and then the general public were urging for additional fare reduction, and then we did not listen to that. Now that this increment had come and built up to even 17 or 18, whichever way you're looking at it, we had no particular good justification to rush and do fare increment. That was our position from the beginning. So, lucky to us, the government too had now intervened and they had asked that diesel to reduce by some 2 cedi and then petrol to about some 0.36. We all welcome
February 2026 rate. However, the figure remains significantly lower. February 2026 rate. However, the figure remains significantly lower by 22.9 percentage points compared to the same period in 2025. On a month-on-month basis, producer prices recorded a 0.7% increase between February and March 2026, indicating short-term price pressures within the economy. The mining and quarrying sector, which carries the highest weight in the index at 43.7%, saw inflation ease slightly to 3.9% from 4.1% in February. In contrast, the manufacturing sector showed some recovery, although still in negative territory, improving from negative 2.9% to negative 2.2%. Meanwhile, inflation in the transport and storage subsector continued its downward trend, falling further to negative 9.8% in March. The Ghana Statistical Service is urging households to adjust consumption towards more stable priced goods and services to protect real incomes. For businesses, particularly those dependent on manufactured inputs, it recommends negotiating medium-term supply contracts to lock in favorable prices while remaining cautious with pricing decisions amid emerging short-term pressures. Government is also being encouraged to sustain policies that enhance fuel supply stability and improve logistics efficiency as declining transport costs offer a boost to overall competitiveness.
And that was the 3 Business News Desk report. Let's bring you updates now from the currency and the commodities market.
On the interbank foreign exchange market, the dollar is selling at 11 cedis, 3 pesos. It gained 1 peso. The British pound is selling at 14 cedis, 85 pesos. It gained 3 pesos. The euro is selling at 12 cedis, 93 pesos. It also gained 2 pesos. However, be guided that these figures could be higher at the Forex Bureau near you. On the global commodities market, Brent crude is trading at $95.20 per barrel. Gold is trading at $4,749.75 per ounce, down by $17.14. Cocoa is trading at $3,327 per ton, up by $87.
Those were updates from the currency and the commodities market, bringing an end to the business news on Sunrise. For more stories, check out our website at 3news.com/business. I am Michael Obodu. Thank you for tuning in. As always, please stay safe.
On social media, Twitter at 3FM927, Facebook at 3FM927, and also on 3news.com.
Sunrise on 3FM, the best in the morning. Sunrise on 3FM, the best in the morning.
3FM morning show. 3FM 92.7. 3FM, your urban lifestyle radio. 3FM sunrise. 3FM morning show. 3FM 92.7.
Amaba yeswe mahoy agbamana vuna mama ima uko ba yeswe mahoy agbamana vuna mama ima uko anamadon kunyo yesu wona mchila nyara kama ni magloni o negbe magloni ba akpa ayata maba yeswe mahoy agbamana vuna mama ima uko ba yeswe mahoy agbamana vuna mama ima uko ododio naho
3FM
Rise, Bethel Revival Choir with the Agbaja Gospel Medley. Today in terms of the weather. Mist or fog patches likely to form over the forest and hilly and some coastal areas. Be on the lookout on their respective social media pages as well, because they will drop updates for you as regards the weather all throughout the day. So let me say a big thank you as well to you who's doing the listening for staying with us up until this point. And from the top, we say big thank yous to Maker's House Chapel. They started off the morning for us with Command Your Morning. Then we came through, started the morning for you with the 3FM Sunrise. Went in for the 6 a.m. news as well as the business news. Kind Ketsi, Senyunam Haliga, and Mike Lugbodu. We're getting into newspapers for you this morning as well, and quite the development in terms of prices that we're supposed to see at the pump. 36 pesos swept off petrol prices for us, and as high as 2 cities, right? 2 cities on diesel. And so in terms of all of the analysis, it looks like the government has leaned into the arguments which were put forth by a number of individuals that look, do not put the benefit across, or don't absorb the same amount for both petrol and diesel in terms of a suspension of the taxes. Because if you want to compare the prices at the pumps currently, the floor price which has been set by the National Petroleum Authority, and good morning to the CEO of that entity as well this morning, is 13 cedis 30 pesos for petrol. 13 cedis 30 pesos for petrol, and 17 cedis 10 pesos worth for diesel. So 13.30, 17.10. If that were to remain, right? If that were to remain in terms of the next pricing window, and the government suspension of some of the taxes and levies were to come through, this is what prices would have looked like. So petrol then would have gone for 12.94 in terms of floor price, 12.94 and 15.10 for diesel. 12.94 for petrol and 15.10 for diesel. You realize that even with that, diesel will still be higher. And diesel will still be higher. It will mean that for a lot of the commercial transport operators who rely on the use of diesel to ferry passengers across the length and breadth of this country, they would have received a substantial absorption in terms of government taking off taxes for them. Then the pass-on effect would not be there. So what the government is seeking to do is entreat private individuals who own their own vehicles to shoulder to an extent the ongoing price escalation. So persons who resort or rely on public transport can be cushioned, because the cushioning in terms of the effect, it's not the same across board. The government also says that there are Metro Mass transit buses, 100 of them, which have come into the country. As of the last time we spoke to the Deputy MD for Metro Mass, the buses were being cleared, will undergo speedy registration, then will be released onto the roads. Right? And the instruction to Metro Mass is that, look, do not charge the same fares as transport operators. But what we know is that Metro Mass has always been lower than your regular trotro. As whether or not that will mean a further reduction in the price, we're yet to find out. And so for the vast majority of Ghanaians who resort to public transport, buses and what have you, and do not own their own vehicles, if you're using ride-hailing service, well, your driver will, shoulder the cost in a bit. There are some electric vehicles as well in the system these days, and so this doesn't directly come to you. And already we're hearing from some of the transport operators who say that, look, the pass-on effect in terms of fares, which were set to be increased, now our hands have been stayed because we're getting as much as 2 cedis off, and so there'll be no transport increases in the offing. It will leave us to ask questions of some others already who had increased transport fares as to whether or not this 2 cedis absorption in terms of taxes will have any bearing going forward on how much they charge the ordinary Ghanaian to commute. One of the many musings we will be seeking to brood over here on the 3FM Sunrise this morning. And yesterday as well, the honorific lecture and award celebrating the life achievement of lawyer Chachuchi Kata. 51 years at the bar. A lot of people who've come to appreciate and love and want to be a part of the legal profession. When you get into it, you begin to hear some other names and some other persons who have lit or set the trail ablaze. But if you've watched from behind, from across the aisle, someone who hasn't been in the profession, his advocacy, as far back as the 2012 election petition, which went through, was carried live on TV stations for the major part of 2013. You would have seen him on his feet. Same for lawyer Philip Addison. And that drew a lot of people into loving the legal profession. Same was said of him during the 2020 election petition as well, where he went up against lawyer Kutuampa, bless his soul wherever he is. 51 years public advocacy, human rights, and some other interesting development in terms of his own contribution to the Ghana National Petroleum Commission. Yesterday he was honored 51 years at the bar. The time he is 75 or 75. DJ Phil, were you born by 75? I know that answer is an emphatic no, because that's 51 years ago and you are not 51 years yet. So easily has been practicing as a lawyer the entire lifespan of a lot of individuals today. But if you want to take the demographic of the country, which is dominated by the youth, then you can say his entire legal practice has spanned the entire duration of half the country's population, their existence in this country. But that's just by the way. He was honored by the University of Professional Studies yesterday, that honorific lecture and award. And I'll take you there to listen to bits and pieces of his speech yesterday as well. He spoke about his time in prison and the trials and tribulations at that point in time. It was the Free Chachu campaign, which I remember was a little. No, not a little. I was younger then. I remember seeing it on the sticker on my headmistress's vehicle, saloon car. It looked like a mini van. It was a family vehicle. The Free Chachu campaign was on across. I saw it on my headmistress's vehicle and I could read, so I read it to myself. It was everywhere in terms of the news circles, because news was forced down on some of us when we were a little younger, and so we caught wind of some of these developments. So to have gone full circle, and yesterday I had the honor of being seated whilst all of that was happening and that lecture was being shared. The Vice President was there, the Chief Justice was there, a host of other lawyers, a host of other persons from across the aisle, really, to be quite fair. Former Environment Minister Professor Frimpong Boateng was also there. Devlulati, Guzitano, Thaddeus, sorry. I mean, I could go on and on and on as to the names which were there. And he spoke in relation to Sal and the 2020 election petition as well. He says that, look, compensation ought, or reparation, right? He mentioned reparation. That reparations ought to be paid to the people of Santro Kofi, Akpafu, Lolobi, and Likpe over what was injustice done them by not having legal representation during the 2020 or the 8th Parliament, really. The papers are here as well, so I'm going to walk us through the papers just quickly, after which I'll have us listen to brief excerpts of that speech. Daily Graphic here with me this morning. Big banner story. OSP unfazed by power to prosecute ruling. Immigration. So that story is big. Yesterday got a lot of tongues wagging, a lot of people talking, and we'll seek to get a bit more in respect of that matter for you here this morning. Matters of jurisdiction, whether or not the High Court can pronounce that the OSP doesn't have prosecutorial powers. It's a question that a lot of lawyers have been sharing opinion on. And for you who is listening, right, and you don't quite understand what all of this could mean, let me try and help break it down. So you know that a law was passed which created the office of the special prosecutor. The running battle which is currently before the Supreme Court is that there are laws in terms of the hierarchy. When I say hierarchy, the order in which the laws which govern this country come in. There are laws. You know, more often than not, when someone is arrested or when you commit a road traffic offense and the police says, do you know you've broken a traffic regulation? Some people ask, show me in the Constitution where it says I cannot cross a red light, or where if I cross a red light I've committed a crime, right? The challenge is, it's not really a challenge, but the appreciation which a lot of us should have is that when you take the Constitution, that is the mother of the laws, right? That is the overall, the ogboro. Now, the Constitution gives an institution like Parliament the rights and the opportunity, or it gives it the power. Let me just use everyday language. It gives it the power to create other laws which will govern us as a people. So it's not just the Constitution as in Constitution. If I am minded to look for one and raise and show to persons who are watching us on YouTube and on Facebook as well, where we're streaming. And by the way, you can send your thoughts to us this morning via Facebook and YouTube as well, where we'll do the reading. It's not just that governs us. So an institution like Parliament has been given the power to make laws. Only that when they make the law, it must not be in breach, or it must not go against what the Constitution says. Otherwise, they can pass other laws which will not be in the Constitution, which will regulate everything that we do as well. Now, if you go into the Constitution, I'm not going to be worrying your head with article this, subsection. No. There is a portion of the Constitution which says that when there is a crime that has been committed and we want to take the person to court, it is the Attorney General. Right now we know him as Dr. Dominic Ayeni, but it's an office, it's an institution, it's an office that exists. It's a creation of statutes, creation of the Constitution proper. That is the only institution that can say, hey, you, because of this X and X that crime that you've committed, we are taking you to court and we are prosecuting you. That's the dictate of the Constitution. That is the only body, right, that can do that. But Parliament in 2018 passed a law. Let me add in addition that the Attorney General's office, which per the Constitution is recognized that they alone can prosecute, the law allows them to say that, oh, in these matters, I have delegated my powers to this person to go and prosecute on my behalf, or that person to go and prosecute on my behalf. So some of us who have had cause to have encountered court proceedings before There are instances where when we are in court, it is not someone from the Attorney General's department or Attorney General's office who is prosecuting the matter, but the police prosecution, because the Attorney General has delegated their powers to the police to prosecute. But in 2018, a law was passed in Parliament which sought to give the Office of the Special Prosecutor powers to prosecute. Now, since then, there have been conversations back and forth as to whether or not that law which was passed by Parliament was not in breach of the Constitution, because the Constitution says only AG can prosecute. But Parliament passed a law, and if you read the OSP's Act, the object gives the OSP powers as well to prosecute. So there's been that running battle. And finally, I don't want to say if it's finally, an individual has gone to the Supreme Court to say that, justices, there is confusion. Is the OSP truly and wholly independent in terms of the prosecutorial powers that it has, or it is subject to the Office of the Attorney General in receiving authorization or permission to proceed to prosecute? Now, while that issue is pending, the Office of the Special Prosecutor has been looking into a certain rice scandal where some people went to clear somebody else's rice and some plenty issues. That matter has been pending in court for quite some time. Right? Now, the people who the OSP's office is prosecuting, they went to raise the same argument in the High Court and said that we don't think the Office of the Special Prosecutor has the power to prosecute us, because if you look at the Constitution, it says that it has to be the Attorney General, right? Then the judge in the case says, listen, there is currently before the Supreme Court a matter which is set to determine if the OSP can prosecute on its own or it will require authorization from the Attorney General. So I am dismissing your application. I am staying whatever that is happening, so that when the Supreme Court does make the final determination, it will inform what we will do in this High Court. Because remember, the Supreme Court is the highest court of the land, right? Now, after that decision, the people who are being prosecuted in that rice scandal matter were not satisfied. So they go to another High Court with another application to that High Court and say that, look, the OSP doesn't have powers to prosecute. And so look at it and make a pronouncement. In short of boring you with the legal terminologies and jargons, that's essentially what the individuals went to do. Now, the High Court, not caring, and I use not caring advisedly, right? Or not paying heed to proceedings or matters currently before the highest court of the land, whose decision will be binding on him, decided to make pronouncement as to the authority of the OSP and said that they don't have power to prosecute anybody. They must go to Attorney General and request authorization to do that. That's essentially the crux of everything that happened yesterday. And there's been reactions back and forth and a whole lot. We'll seek to get into all of that conversations. But the OSP says they are unfazed. As for them, Omadakra, this is not an issue to worry about. And so they will appeal the decision of the High Court. And yesterday I spoke to Justice Abdullahi on the development as well and what it could mean. And I asked the question that if a lot of the lawyers are saying that, look, this matter, the courts didn't have the right power to make such a pronouncement, then you can ignore it and proceed, because after all, it will not be binding on anybody. But he was of the opinion that that chips away in terms of the powers or the credibility of the OSP to want to walk through every court or walk into every court to prosecute, and will begin to plant a seed in the minds of other judges, high court, and what have you. And so it will be appropriate for the court, for the OSP to appeal that decision. We'll find out what some other lawyers think as well as to this matter. So that's just in relation to that one. But other matters on the front page of the Daily Graphic. President charges Ghanaians to lead healthy lifestyles as he launches free primary health care program. It's a picture of the president and the health minister as well. And also, file income tax returns by end April, according to the Ghana Revenue Authority. I'll take you to the back page. Stop destructive activities around Lake Bosomtwe. Arocha, Ghana is saying this. Oh, Charlie, they've cleared the vegetation around the Lake Bosomtwe. I wonder how that came about, and authorities did not see that happening. You know, sometimes when these things happen, later on we'll have to be going to the respective municipal assemblies and be asking questions. It comes off as though there are no national security persons within the local. How can somebody go and clear a portion of land? Caterpillar, it's not like it's a small vehicle that you cannot see. They'll clear the thing, and then later on the authorities within the localities will come and be asking questions. How did this happen and all of that, when they are in the locality with us? You know, very, very strange. Also, Energy Commission to set up system to monitor power outages, according to the Energy Minister. That's the Daily Graphic done for you. The Ghanaian Times, next on my bill, free primary health care to support NHIS, not replace it, as according to the President. Government reduces diesel, petrol prices. They've absorbed taxes. Someone was saying it's a free market, so the government cannot say that they've reduced. All we can say is they've absorbed some taxes, and so we will see to the reduction of, but it's just semantics, right? OSP can't prosecute without AG's authorization. As the High Court, that's the matter I've taken time to help us appreciate for a number of us who may have been confused. And GIS begins, as the Ghana Immigration Service begins phase 2 of anti-street begging operation. On the back page, government declares marine protected area to restore fish stock, and education reform as much industry need. Telecel Ghana CEO. Daily Guide next is pretty much the last paper I have right now. OSP has no power to prosecute. High Court. Stop state-sponsored harassment to government. The NPP is saying this. Henry Nana Boachi is pictured here. Interior Minister or a ministry imposes curfew on Karaga and Gushegu. Police seized 22 slabs of cocaine worth over 400,000 cedis in narcotics bust. One of the suspects is captured, and girl 4 dies from sexual assault. Oh my goodness. Those are the front pages of the newspapers for us this morning. We'll begin to get into the details now. from yesterday and catch just brief excerpt of that speech by Chachu Chikata, 51 years. He spoke to concerns as to judicial independence and what became a tag of unanimous FC at some point in time, and no grudges being held. Just briefly on that, and then we'll return into the studio for a bit more in terms of conversations.
The Rawlings trial. He asks the driver how much the fare is, pays the driver, then as the taxi leaves, he turns to me and confidently says, "Don't worry, your man will be out soon." The calm assurance of that young soldier in essentially telling me about an upcoming coup d'etat is quite unforgettable. Ghana has come a long way since those heady days. The Fourth Republic has provided the longest period of stable constitutional democratic order for the country. This is something and guard jealously, not take for granted. The legal profession, and in particular the judiciary, have important roles to play in sustaining this order. So we must examine ourselves honestly and speak frankly if we are to deserve the confidence of the society. I found it sad during the election petition following the December 2020 presidential election that the expression unanimous FC became the name of our Supreme Court. The challenge to the declaration of results formally announced on 8th June 2020 by the chairperson of the Electoral Commission required a fair and just adjudication. It was not in dispute that the figures of the outcome of the election that were announced by the chairperson of the Electoral Commission were corrected in a press release by the public relations officer of the Electoral Commission. Subsequently, the figures that were presented in response to the petition by the Electoral Commission were also different from what the chairperson had announced. The constitutionally designated returning officer, the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, even though she had deposed to an affidavit verifying the answer of the Electoral Commission and was supposed to testify, did not testify to present the authoritative final figures, much less explain the ever-changing figures from the Commission. To this day, therefore, the country has no definitive accounting for the 2020 presidential election. In the face of evidence of her failure even to be in attendance at the process in the collation center at the EC head office, the declaration of results that she made was even more problematic. Unanimous FC was the verdict of the people on the proceedings in the Supreme Court, which shielded the returning officer from accounting to the people of Ghana. The negative reaction of ordinary people to the appearance of judges to participate in the swearing in of the new president on 7 January 2025 was an unfortunate reflection of the people's attitude to the unanimous FC. I may also say that from the point of view of President Mahama, whose election petition was dismissed by the unanimous FC, vindication came comprehensively in December 2024. What he could not have done with the hung parliament after the 2020 election, he now has a chance to do decisively with a supermajority in parliament. This vindication, however, comes with a heavy weight of responsibility and expectation, which I believe the president is conscious of. Let me recall, sadly again, that in December 2020, the people of the Santro Kofi, Akpafu, Likpe, and Lolobi South traditional areas, by an announcement on the evening of 6 December 2020, were prevented from voting in the Hohwe constituency they had previously voted in under a valid constitutional instrument. Yet a winner was declared of the election in that constituency, and he served in parliament in a period when the citizens of Ghana in the South traditional areas had no representation in parliament. That was an undermining of the very fabric of the Republic of Ghana, in addition to being a violation of the fundamental human right to vote of those disenfranchised citizens. Professor Margaret Kweku and other petitioners first sought from the High Court in Ho remedies for the human rights violation. The High Court in Ho granted an interim order of interlocutory injunction. The then Attorney General ran to the Supreme Court and had the court pronounce that since one of the remedies being sought was the invalidation of the results of a parliamentary election, the procedure of an election petition in the High Court was the only procedure to be used to bring the matter to court. The Supreme Court cited some of its earlier decisions in cases involving J.H. Mensah and Baba Jamal, among others. The interim order of interlocutory injunction lapsed. The petitioners then filed an election petition and went through a process of trial, where again, the Electoral Commission chose not to testify to explain their conduct. In July 2024, the High Court decided that it did not have jurisdiction over the matter. Following an appeal, the Court of Appeal recently quashed the decision of the High Court, but now stated a case for the determination of the Supreme Court. Judicial remedy for the disenfranchisement in December 2020 of Ghanaians in the South traditional areas is still pending. It cannot be said that the subsequent creation of a Guan district and a Guan constituency are sufficient to remedy the injustice to the people of Sao. For one thing, the mere denomination of a district and a constituency does not provide the development resources that are the legitimate aspiration of the people. For the period they lacked representation in Parliament and a share of the resources that could have been available through a member of Parliament, I dare say they are owed reparation. The historic injustice of the declaration by the EC of the election of a member of Parliament for a constituency to which they belong but were denied a vote in awaits judicial resolution. Please remember that the EC itself has admitted that it would have been illegal to have asked the voters in those areas to vote in the Boem constituency in December 2020. Yet, that is what the constitutional instrument which the EC has claimed in its defense to the election petition to be the applicable instrument. That is what that instrument would have required. There is an unsettling judicial contradiction, which I must also point out. While the Supreme Court, in respect of Sal, insisted that an election petition in the High Court was the only way to invalidate an election petition, when it came to an action initiated in the Supreme Court to invalidate the result of a parliamentary election in Asin North, the Supreme Court dismissed an objection to its jurisdiction to invalidate the parliamentary election that was based on its own previous decisions, went ahead to grant initially an interlocutory injunction preventing the elected member of Parliament, Honorable Jachi Kwesen, from being in Parliament. Remember, this was the time the e-levy was being pushed through, and eventually delivered a final decision invalidating the Asin North parliamentary election. The resulting by-election, however, saw Honorable Jachi Kwesen win again with an even bigger margin. Despite all the machinery of government being massed up against him, new roads suddenly being constructed in the area, the president, vice president, and the whole machinery of the party in government moving in to campaign against him, he maintained this remarkable victory streak in December 2024. During the period when the interlocutory injunction prevented him from being in Parliament, the people of Asin North were deprived of representation in Parliament at a time when important national issues such as the e-levy were under consideration. Honorable Jachi Kwesen, who also faced an obviously politically motivated criminal trial from 2022.
The best in the morning.
So, brief excerpt of that speech. You can go on, it's on social media and catch it for yourself in full. Today, it looks like there's going to be a constitutional lecture. in the studio. Sixtus Don Ullo is in studio with me as well. Good morning to you, Sixtus. I trust that all is well.
All is well.
That's great. All is
well.
I mean,
except that I am pained.
Pained that what?
And disturbed by the decision that came out of the High Court yesterday.
I'll have you get into that. I was just going to pick your thoughts briefly on 51 years of Chachuchikata at the bar. That celebration, the honorific lecture was yesterday. And an award as well.
I recall this was to happen early this year.
No, it was last year, and then unfortunately
3FM 92.7
August 6th happened.
Yes, the crash.
And so it meant that that was because it was
it was the same day.
Yes, I think the first day of the lecture was when the incident happened, and I recall because I had conversations with somebody. I had conversations with Enyunam actually. Enyunam Hadigan. I was like, I think we should be at that lecture for all 3 days if we could just make time and go on one of the days.
No
listen.
Student of the law or practitioner of the law should miss that lecture. The man himself, his life, his work has been dedicated to building the systems that we see today, the legal framework that we have. He's one person who has tested it all, contributed to making the law. And so, yes, he should be celebrated. There are people I have seen, there are people who are even saying that we should have monuments put up in his name and in his honor. And that's not a call that is far-fetched. If you consider the contribution to the practice and development of the law and the legal systems which we have today. And so, yes, for those of us who grew up following the courts, always excited to hear what case is happening, and would always want to hear first in the news the biggest story from the courts. You don't have to be a lawyer, but you would know the name Chachuchikata. For those who are always interested or have always been interested in the development of the law, testing the law, understanding the letter and the spirit of the law, seeing when they say there shall be a council of state, what does it mean? These are the kinds of fights that the Colossus Chachuchikata dedicated his life and practice to. And you would know he comes from a background of high respect. At the time, the youngest lawyer to be called, most celebrated for his brain at the time of his call, his opinion always respected and sought on matters of national interest. And so it is not surprising if you have been a keen watcher or follower of our judicial system, you wouldn't be surprised at how he's been hailed. Maybe one of the instances where you would see that from across the political divide, you have approval ratings for him going high. And so at least we consider he's one of the institutions that bridges the political gap that we see quite often, lines along which we are divided as a people when we are having discussions. And so he's to be celebrated. He's earned it. He's dedicated his life. And the excerpts that you played, you see the kind of cases that he was talking about, that the fight for the respect of human rights, the fight for the respect and the enforcement of the letter of the Constitution, the insistence that procedure must be followed, And one of the landmark cases in this country, the GMPC case, where he was convicted on causing financial loss to the state, is one of the cases that is still studied, in schools. When you are talking about procedure, what should happen and what should not happen with the prosecution of a case, and the respect for constitutional provisions such as the right to fair hearing, that an accused person has the right to defend himself and must be afforded an equal opportunity to defend himself. That you don't have a politically exposed person or a politician or a public officer, to be safe, brought before the court on some charges, and you can see that there is a deliberate, calculated attempt by the state to put this person behind bars at all costs, by all means. And that is where you see that those are the cases that he stood up against, to the extent that in his own case, when he was granted pardon by President Kufuor, he turned down the pardon because he insisted that, look, there's a significant difference between a pardon and an acquittal. An acquittal will mean that the crime, you did not commit the crime. Legally, it means that there was never a crime. A pardon would mean that, well, you did it, but for 1, 2, 3 reasons, the state thinks that you shouldn't serve the sentence. We forgive you of the offense that you committed against the Republic. And he said no, he had to clear his name. And so that was the reason he turned down and went ahead to challenge his conviction. And so, yes, he's tested the law, and by doing that, he's contributed significantly to the development of the law and to our practice of the law, always ensuring or insisting that the right procedure must be followed, the right thing must be done. Again, he spoke about SAL, and SAL is one of the blots on our democratic practice in this dispensation. Indeed, I dare say since independence, that a whole group was denied their right to vote based on some administrative decision which led to I think a CI, yeah. I think there was a CI to that effect. That they could vote only presidential and not parliamentary. And this was another case that tested our laws. And we kept asking ourselves, could a person be denied of his right to vote by an administrator of the process? Who gives the administrator of a process the authority to decide that A should vote, B should not vote, or A should vote for 1 and not vote for 2? So that SAL case is another case that would forever remain on us a dark mark in our democratic march.
It says there should be pay reparations.
There should be paid reparations.
Reparations for
well, that's a conversation.
It's a conversation for another day.
Another day. But who decides who is denied a right? And you would recall your basic social studies, right? They say that the right to vote is a fundamental right, which will mean that it is a right that it is inalienable. Once you turn the voting age, you are part of the the decision making of the society. And all you have to do is attain that universal, the voting age. They call it what? Universal suffrage.
Universal adult suffrage.
Adult suffrage. That is the only qualification you would need. But then we saw that this was hurt or offended. And so in our march, democratic march, in our practice of the law, our observance of the law, we have seen that there have been offenses of the law, breaches of the law, which would take individuals, courageous and brave individuals, to be able to stand up to the system and say that you cannot do this to this person, that this is not right, that there is a certain procedure, a certain framework, a certain structure for the purposes of ensuring law and order, for the purposes of ensuring certainty of the law, for the purposes of ensuring that Mawuena will be treated in a manner equal to the way Dong will be treated. And so he is an institution to be studied, especially for young lawyers like me, those of us who are growing up in the law. And there's a lot we have to learn from him.
Absolutely.
A whole lot.
Absolutely, a lot we have to learn from him. Quickly on, I'll come to you on this end, but on the fuel taxes and what the cost which has been absorbed by government in terms of taxes, and Frederick is going to have GPRT. I was hoping we could get VIP as well, because they increase transport fares by 20%. If government is slashing 2 cities of diesel, which I suspect their vehicles use diesel, I'll need someone to work the math for me. By what percentage, even just using the prevailing floor prices, by what prevailing circumstances, what that will mean is one of the many things. Satisfied with the slashes, because I mean you use petrol, you got just 36 pesos.
So to be selfish, I'm not satisfied.
No, let's look at the bigger picture. I mean, but it's
so yes, I'm glad you mentioned the bigger picture. That which is what it is apparent that is what the government was looking at, the bigger picture. That if we didn't have, and we had this discussion here yesterday, that the general concern was for the people who use commercial vehicles, operators of commercial transport, to benefit from a relief that should or would translate into the benefit of the mass, the commuting public. That if we have trotro drivers or operators buying fuel at a rate that is not killing their businesses, they are at peace, they are happy, and you and I who patronize them, we are also happy, we are at peace. They had threatened, if you recall, that they were going to we were going to see some hikes.
Yeah.
And there was some intervention. Ultimately, the president had to speak, impressed upon them to hold on and await the decision of his cabinet. He said he was convening an extraordinary cabinet meeting just to look at that, which was the first good step by the administration. Then we got the goodwill also of the operators minus VIP. The operators decided that, yes, we will hold off on the increments that we are threatening. Go and sit with your cabinet, take your decisions, come back to us, tell us what you have decided. Let us see how it will affect our operations. Then we can decide whether we are ignoring you and going ahead to hike the prices, or we will listen to you, which was also good on the part of the drivers. But not on the part of VIP, because we saw out of nowhere, VIP announced price hikes.
25%.
25%. Significant 25%. And everybody is wondering, we are still discussing, we are still saying, oh, let us hold off and see what can happen. How is government going to respond to this or intervene in this matter, which will inform our response? So that singular act by the VIP company was not in good faith. It was defiant of the goodwill that we had seen from GPRTU and other transport operators. And the question must be asked and insisted upon. Now there's a reduction which you are benefiting from. Are you going to revert back to your old
There's a question that needs to be asked of them.
Yes.
In all sincerity.
Are you going to revert? And the third part is that the prices are hikes, but the commuters are not even having the comfort that they want in the... Look, I got messages from people who were traveling to Wa,
3FM 92.
complaining terribly about the state of the bus and also about the load on the bus and how the bus nearly caught fire because it was simply overloaded.
Really?
How do you charge people? You, in the interest of your business, you exact more than your pound of flesh from the traveling public, promising them comfort, reliability, and that comfort and reliability is still sacrificed. So they have questions to answer. And those are questions that they have to answer to all of us. I kept asking myself, and you see, at a point, I stopped blaming them. If we had a reliable STC, the State Transport Corporation, if we had reliable buses moving from Accra to Wa, and I keep using Accra to Wa because those are the examples that I have. I'm sure if we were to activate the phone lines now, other people would call in. Today is Thursday. Somebody left here on Wednesday from STC. If you are a frequent user of STC, you would know that on their ticket they was usually write reporting time 3 p.m. Departure is 4 p.m. On this occasion, the bus departed from the terminal at 8 p.m. instead of the 4 p.m. 4 good hours late. 4 good hours late. As of Thursday night, the bus was still on the way because there was a breakdown. And this is a common story we keep getting from commuters on that stretch, the Accra-Wa stretch, whether Accra-Tamale, Accra, Tachiman, Accra, Sola, whichever, on that stretch. Yes, we can admit that the road is bad. Yes, we can admit that the road adds a strain to the bus, the vehicles. But should that not make us put our strongest vehicles on that route?
No, we will spoil it. So we'll give you the one that is not strong.
So you give us.
No, I'm just telling you that's the thing.
No. I'm not fighting. I'm agreeing with you. Yeah. And it is the point I am making. You will give us the rickety ones, the ones that break down every 5 minutes.
and then become a burden onto the
Somebody
commuters.
is traveling on a journey that should take 9 to 10 hours. It takes 24 hours or more. And we think that people will continue patronizing that service. No. They will run to the private operator who is squeezing every ounce of blood out of them. But they will stay there because the private operator is promising something that the state operator is not promising. So STC has to put its act together. It has to.
A worthy competition.
Be a worthy competition to VIP, to VVIP, to the other ones, the other operators, 2M Express,
OA Travel and Tour.
OA Travel and Tour. Be a worthy competitor as a state operator.
So I'm hearing there's Vision and all of that who
are all using that route.
Yeah.
If STC, and growing up, STC was always the most reliable for all of us. People would queue waiting for OSA, then into STC. All the other trucks will be passing by. They are not, because they are waiting for the state operator, which was noted for its quality, its customer centeredness, its reliability, that you know that if you left something at an STC yard, you will go around the whole country and come back and find it.
Pick up your item.
Can same still be said about STC today?
Question.
That the STC buses were air conditioned.
I think you can, to an extent. You can. Well, I'm yet to get reports of persons saying.
I'm just asking.
Yeah. I mean, they're relevant questions.
From the people who experience STC every day. I'm just asking. That today, STC will take 24 hours to travel from Accra to Wa. And in between Accra and Wa, they will experience 3 breakdowns. Who is watching? Who is addressing these concerns? So imagine the traffic that you are driving from STC to VIP. Mm. And when Nana Akomia was MD of STC, they opened a terminal at Circle.
Close to the
VIP. Because they said VIP was taking all their customers. Somebody is going to STC yard. He gets to Circle, and you know how aggressive the VIP boys are. Oh, Kumasi. They are loading. They are moving. Former roads minister will say, you can't catch up because they are moving fast. So, under Nana Akomia, they decided to bring the competition straight to the doorstep of the private operators. Mm. And that within that enclave, you have about 2 or 3. There's VIPs there. There's 2MX Express there. There's is your Vision 1 there? Yes, the same area. And just across is also Neoplan, where all these other 207s are also stationed. So the whole idea of bringing the competition to the doorstep of the private operator is being defeated by the experiences of the commuter. And you don't expect people to continue patronizing the state transport when their experience is terrible. If I'm traveling from here to Wa, and it takes me 24 hours to 27 hours, 2 breakdowns on the road, stress. If I'm going for a meeting, it means that I have missed that meeting, or an interview, I have missed that interview. It means that I cannot plan my time with you. So STC has to put its act together so that it can provide a worthy competition to the private operators. Let's add Metro Mass to that conversation. Again, when Metromass started, President Kufuor.
Yes, President Kufuor.
It was running from Wa to Accra. Wa to Kumasi.
I used Metromass to Accra from Ho.
From Ho, yes. Yeah. They were running the intercity services. And the problem I had always had with Metromass, at least in the early days, now I don't know whether it's changed, there are seats. The Wa Accra route had, the seats were hard. And in fact, I have to talk about the seats on the STC bus as well. When you sit on their seat, it's like a straight and.
You have experienced the thing proper, so.
No, I have lived it, so I'm speaking an experience. I didn't go to watch the bus. I have used STC before. I've used Metromass before. I have used VIP before. I have used OA before. Our students, we used to organize OA buses from Legon to Wa, from Legon to Kumasi, from Legon to Cape Coast. We did all these things. So it's not like I was told. I have lived it. So let us provide, new buses have come. Is that for Metro or for STC?
Metromass, 100 new buses.
Metromass. Make your seats comfortable.
Now I have to come from manufacturing because it's a bus that's been procured for use already. So the seats are comfortable.
You cannot tell the manufacturer your specs?
No, I'm saying the 100 are already in. So if you say make it comfortable, they are already in. So if they are not comfortable,
there's nothing we can do about it.
Maybe the subsequent ones can be made comfortable. Otherwise, you are on
in
your
fact,
own.
we want to see. So my senior counsel, Kale Caesar, is the MD of Metromass. His deputy, we have hosted him before here. And Kale Caesar has a track record of good works. This is the time for Leonard MD to change the face of Metromass. Put some good buses on the Wa Accra Road, Kumasi Accra Road, Tachiman Accra Road, Sola Accra Road. Put some good buses on that stretch. If it's about the road too, the road has been awarded on contracts. Put some good buses on that road and see whether people will not switch from the private operators to your side. STC, put strong buses on the Accra-Wa Road, Accra-Tamale Road. Put good buses on that stretch and see whether you will not take or redirect the traffic. If there's going to be a delay, I cannot be sitting at a bus terminal for 4 hours. And these are not isolated cases. These are things that keep happening often. I'm traveling. You ask me to report at 4 p.m. Report at 3 p.m. 4 p.m. we take off. I report at 2 p.m. because I don't want to be late. And we finally take off at 8 p.m. So from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m., I am sitting at a bus terminal. A terminal that offers me no sports, no relaxation, no some hard benches that I'm sitting on, very uncomfortable, and I'm sitting there for 5 good hours. That is not. So this is an experience I am speaking to. STC, rethink your deployment of buses on the Accra-Wa Road, on the Accra-Tamale Road,
right,
on the Accra, I don't know about who, but I know that the buses on the
STC has
Accra,
Toyota Hiace on the Ho Road.
The Ho Road.
Yeah, I've been there. I've been to Ho a number of times.
Which are more comfortable.
Yeah, fully air conditioned.
But I know that the Cape Coast people don't have a problem. Not that I know. I guess the Cape Coast people don't have a problem. So the Accra Cape Coast route, I'm guessing that is fine because we don't hear much from that side often. The problem is Accra, Northern Ghana transport or transportation. Let's check that. Basic things, problems that we can take out, and it will amaze you how much impact it would have on traffic to STC and to Metro Mass.
Right. Still live here on the 3FM Sunrise. Let me say a happy birthday to Kinsley Seidu. His colleague works with Colgate Ghana, a very good brother. Today happens to be your birthday, Kinsley. Happy birthday to you. Today, I believe we'll get into other matters now for the lecture, because there has been quite the opinion. I don't know if Frederick was going to get us the GPR to you, but they haven't come through yet, and so maybe we'll switch lanes. VIP and then GPR to you. Calls thus far have not been successful, but we'll try and raise a GPR. I know they've been reacting to some of these matters already, but yesterday that ruling came through. I don't know if I should bring back Justice Abdullah. I know I'm not going to bring him back in terms of that interview or that interaction I had with him. But
or we can just play back.
Yes, but I'm just saying you have the objects of the OSP's Act passed in 2017. So when I was speaking, I mentioned 2018. 2017 was the first year of Parliament and Nanado in office, and so it's a bit. But for our viewers who are on Facebook as well as on YouTube, right, persons who are monitoring from those platforms, you see, this morning I was seeking to explain the entire debacle, if I can call it that, in terms of why there's even a conversation as to if the OSP can prosecute and all of that. Now, because the graphic has the specifics, and so I'll have to share that with listeners as well. And so Articles 88, and we have the Constitution before us. Sixtus is a lawyer, and so he walks around with the Constitution in his pocket. Article 88.1 provides for the office of the Attorney General, and so there are ministries, right? But not all of them are mentioned specifically in the source document from which all other laws are expected to come from, or all other laws are expected to conform to. So the Attorney General's office, or department as we used to call it, is mentioned primarily in the Constitution, and Articles 88.1 provides for that. It says that there shall be an Attorney General of Ghana who shall be a Minister of State and the principal legal advisor to the government. He shall discharge duties of legal nature and may be referred or assigned to him by the President. Go to the 3 and other parts. That's where the entire meat is. The 3 is where the entire meat is. That the Attorney General shall, and for the lawyers, I think there have been previous cases in courts which have explained what shall means in when the framers of the Constitution use shall, what it means, right? So the Attorney General shall be responsible for the initiation and conduct of all prosecutions of criminal offenses. And the 4 says, all offenses prosecuted in the name of the Republic of Ghana shall be at the suit of the Attorney General or any other person authorized by him in accordance with law. These 2 provisions is what has become subject of debate and has ended up at the Supreme Court, that no ademptive suit, which is currently pending. And I actually understand the court will be hearing that matter today. And so there will be conversations, a lot more in that regard. But all of it came to a head yesterday, to an extent, following that High Court ruling. And there's been disappointment across the spectrum for some lawyers as to the reasoning by the judge. You have your own opinions in relation to this matter, and so I'm just going to leave the floor for you for 5 minutes.
It's not possible.
5 minutes is not enough.
No. You see, at this point, I'm like Senior Counsel Martin Pebu. The passion on this matter is plenty.
Yeah.
You know, as a journalist, the OASP Act was one of the works that I followed keenly from its formative stages right into the passage of the law. I was part of a lot of the conversations, the stakeholder discussions, review of the drafts, and all of those things. The OASP law and the RTI law. These are two things that I am proud to always say that I also followed and was part of, not just following as a reporter, but was actively part of. And so the submissions or my view on this matter will not necessarily be about what is captured in terms of the letter of the OASP Act, or even situating it within the context of Article 88 of the Constitution. Let's take a step back. There were conversations about dealing with corruption in public life. And we all agreed at the time that to be able to fight corruption, we needed an independent institution, independent from political control, independent from all strings. Such an office would be able to prosecute political actors and politically exposed persons who offend the public purse or in the conduct of their work allow themselves to be corrupted in a manner that would hinder the progress or development of the nation. This was a general background from which the conversation started. Then we looked around and said, we could give the power to the Attorney General and tell the Attorney General that, look, if you catch former appointees, that's an example, who allowed themselves to be corrupted.
It's not an example, because in our part of the world, current appointees rarely, it's in fact one of the reasons why the entire conversation rarely get put before any courts to answer.
They never.
Yeah.
That is only because...
You can't say never, because there have been instances
that
where
is only because we see the audit reports after they have left office.
But there are audit reports which are coming.
I said we see. The reports may come, but we may never see them until they leave office. A different administration takes over, completely different administration takes over. Then we all realize that, look, something untoward happened. Let us deal with it. But the concern was that an Attorney General who is appointed by the government of the day, an Attorney General who is a full politician, an Attorney General who is a full party member, an Attorney General who cannot be said to be independent of the executive of the day, cannot be trusted to prosecute certain offenses, particularly offenses that hinder on corruption and corruption-related activities.
Absolutely.
So we all agreed that for us to be taken seriously globally in our fight against corruption, for the world to see that indeed we are doing something on the fight against corruption, for we ourselves, for us, to be convinced that we are making progress and that the fight against corruption is actually happening, that we are actually holding corruption by the horns and we are fighting it. Let us set up an independent body. Independent in terms of financing, independent in terms of powers, prosecutorial powers, the decision to prosecute or not to prosecute, the decision to say that we are prosecuting Mawuena, the decision to say that we don't want to prosecute Mawuena, the decision to say that Mawuena is a small fish, we are waiting for the big fish. All of those decisions, that's the prosecutorial powers. In order to ensure the independence, even the appointment of the special prosecutor should come with a level of independence. The board of the office of the special prosecutor should have institutional representation in a manner that cannot be controlled by any executive of the day or by any judiciary of the day or judicial service of the day or by any attorney general of the day. So the picture was to have Mawuena, SP, you are in your office, you have your budget, you are paid from the consolidated fund. That is to say that the president cannot decide to vary your conditions of service as a punishment, or some parliamentarian cannot move a motion in parliament to say that let us punish him. To say that, Mawuena, we are giving you the power to deal with any politician or politically exposed person or private person playing public function. That's the other part we often forget. If you are a private person and you have been given public funding to execute a project or to do something, then you will fall under this. You will come within the jurisdiction of the OSP. So let us ensure and guarantee the independence in all of the ways that I have mentioned plus more.
Right.
So that when you are prosecuting, if corruption charges are brought against the Attorney General, the current Attorney General, and the OSP, the SP, decides to initiate prosecution, the Attorney General will then become a subject of that prosecution, which is also the other reason why, even though it was admitted at the time in the deliberations that per the Constitution, only the Attorney General has prosecutorial powers. Let us ensure that some of these powers are ceded to the SP, so that the SP can prosecute everybody, including the Attorney General. If the Attorney General has the power to decide what cases the SP prosecutes, and there's a case involving the Attorney General, what do you think will happen?
He will not be prosecuted.
He will not be prosecuted. So the deliberations leading up to the establishment of the office of the special prosecutor, please, I am not speaking for Kisi Ejabeng or the office. Neither am I speaking for the Attorney General. Neither am I speaking against the judge. I am laying general conversations, the foundations upon which we have the office of the special prosecutor today. So it's not that we just wanted to set up some office, create jobs, and let people work, and we pay them, get bodyguards for SP, get a big office for SP, give him salary, and recruit investigators. No. Indeed, there was an admission of the conflict between the constitutional provision and then the statute, which was to establish the office of the. And that has always been a running conversation. And anybody who has been part of this conversation knows that this has been a running conversation. Let me pause here for sports.
Absolutely. We'll return to this conversation because it's one of the big ticket items which we're looking at, and we'll get a bit more in terms of legal opinion as Sixtus will share his as well. Important background he provides in all of this. And I will just ask this question so that when we return we'll brood over, right? That the Attorney General's office allows for police prosecutors in the lower courts carry out prosecutions and all of that. One time I asked a question, how do they check? And they say, oh, I mean, the dockets come through from time to time and all of that. Is that the sort of authorization in the wisdom of this judge? Is that the sort of authorization he spoke to when he says get authorization from
that is what it would appear
from the
Attorney General,
or it will mean the Attorney General has to okay before he can initiate prosecution.
It's the same thing. So from this, and to be fair, I've not read the full decision.
We have all not. It's just the.
It would appear that
92.7
when the SP, the OASP conducts an investigation, builds its dockets, that docket would then be forwarded to the AG. AG will go through that docket and then okay it for that prosecution to then start. Because I've not read the decision, I cannot tell whether the okaying will mean that an officer from the department, the Attorney General's department, will be the one directly handling that prosecution, or the advice of the Attorney General will be given, then an officer from the OASP will take over the prosecution. I cannot tell. And I'm not even sure that is a nuance that the decision will provide.
We'll bring all those perspectives, and so we'll put that part as well on ice and bring all those perspectives. And good morning to you, Akosi. I trust that all is well.
Yeah, good morning. Everything is fine.
You're a Barca fan, I suppose.
I'm one of those people. I don't have the heart to support a football team.
So
every season, I choose a coach and support the coach.
So which coach are we supporting?
Diego Simeone.
Hey. You support Otuado?
But I support the Black Stars.
Otuado is gone.
No, but I support the Black Stars. I don't support teams. I don't support teams.
She said she doesn't support teams.
No, not at all.
She supports
coaches.
I know.
Based
and
on
so
the
lawyer in
of
you
the coach
decided to remember the things of old and come and ask about someone who is gone. I beg you. He is gone.
This is a harmless question.
Gone.
Black Stars.
He is gone. So you want him to lift the Champions League this season?
I would wish Diego Simeone would be able to do that, but I mean it's also a very, very difficult task, especially knowing how he plays. I mean,
Arsenal next, right? For Simeone and his team. Yesterday, Madrid was booted
Listen,
out.
I thought everything was going well for Real Madrid. Then I'm like, what happened to this team? Because when it comes to the Champions League, we always have this thing we say that no matter how bad Madrid are playing, whether it's in the league, Copa del Rey, whatever,
they turn up for the Champions League.
Turn up the heat.
But it's now 2 seasons in a row. Quarterfinals is where they've exited.
Yeah.
And like you said, I think they had everything on lock and key.
They do.
Until that red card.
And even when it comes to coaching, they don't even. Bayern doesn't even have a better coach than them.
Oh, Arbeloa versus.
I'm just saying, like when you want.
Oh
to
no,
when you want to put experience and everything. This is what Company, who was coming from which team?
But Company had been in the Belgian league. Was
with the national team. he came to
No,
Burnley.
so in the national
Maybe he
team,
was
and
with
then he
Burnley.
coached one of the league teams. I can't
Burnley.
remember. Then from Belgium.
From Belgium.
Then
Then
he came to Burnley, won the championship record points, if I'm not mistaken, and was in the Premier League. So he has a wealth of experience at least as compared to Abeloa.
No, but if you accepted to be the manager for Real Madrid,
He's won the league before. Company has won the league before, so it's a league winning coach.
But
So I
winning the league as a
strongly
player,
disagree with
winning
you
the
saying
league-
he's
listen,
on par with
No, I'm
Abeloa.
just saying that when you look at the Bundesliga in terms of its
Competition,
competitiveness,
right.
yes, and then you want to compare it to the La Liga.
Alonso also won it. Alonso also won there. He won
No,
it.
but what I'm saying is, it was those once in a very long while beautiful story you get to tell.
You expect Bayern to win the league every season. And so you can
the
argue,
Bundesliga?
yes,
Of course.
you can argue whether or not they have a coach. The expectation is that they will win the league. It's a fair point
A
to
former
make.
coach of theirs actually said it. When you coach a team like Bayern, they would always expect you to win the league. And if you don't, it's like, why didn't you?
The Bavarians.
Why couldn't you? Those are the things. So, I mean, I'm not saying Company is a bad coach. He's done well. Very, very, very extremely.
And his choice in players have
extremely
turned
well.
out very, very good
Yes.
for the team.
Yes, they have.
Luis
Yes.
Diaz.
I mean, to think he was going
Olise.
to be at Liverpool.
Yeah, so
The name of the coach is Company.
yeah, Vincent Company.
So as in Don Company.
No, it's K. His company is spelled with a K. Okay, Akoso, time for us to get into sports. Akoso has all of the lowdown from the Champions League, and there's Europa and Conference League, which is where my darling Chelsea will be headed, considering all things being equal. But we'll have a conversation about that bogus team a lot later.
It's now time for sports on Sunrise. My name is Akosia AJ. There's a bit of good news. I mean, the human being they killed is not coming back, but those who committed that crime, some of them have been arrested, and we'll be talking about that very, very soon on the show. We'll also be talking about the GFA, because a lot of the time we hear about what are they doing with the FIFA Forward project. Well, yesterday something happened at the headquarters of the Ghana Football Association, and we will be looking at that very, very soon. Also, Champions League, and so if your team made it, I mean, I'm sure you'll be excited to listen to what your coaches and players have to say. If your team didn't make it to, I mean, better luck next time. But still, we will talk about everything that has happened throughout yesterday. But we're starting from here in Ghana, where the Ghana Police Service has arrested 2 suspects, including a gang leader, over the robbery that led to the death of Dominic Frimpong of Brekum Chelsea FC. The arrests followed an intelligence-led operation. One suspect was injured in a gun battle with the police and is receiving treatment under guard, while the other was captured separately. Authorities have not yet disclosed the identities of the suspects, but investigations are ongoing to establish the full circumstances surrounding the robbery and events that led to the footballer's death. Meanwhile, captain of Brekum Chelsea, Prince Annan, has called on the Ghana Football Association to introduce stricter travel safety measures for clubs following the deadly armed robbery attack on the team bus that led to the death of midfielder Dominic Frimpong. Speaking on Akuma FM, Anane appealed for reforms in how clubs travel for away matches, especially long-distance journeys after games.
mean to crowd be up on any to do say convention so in Condia say crowd be a will be to corner then more than 3 hours maybe or then and 10 and the young calendar at the time what was and if you could no matter the journey is no say you 3 hours for an I think when you police me no and send you okay man police can you do any other then or the Itiba, we are to be how I will see them in the main and yet maybe a movie family American one that me to be out to extension on yet area.
Well, you heard Prince Annan, who is the captain for Brecum Chelsea. They're now to the camp of the Ghana Football Association, where they've presented 5 vehicles to key operational units under the FIFA Forward program as part of efforts to strengthen football administration across the country. The latest allocation covers 2 regional football associations, the Technical Directorate, the GFA headquarters, and the Ghana Man Soccer Center of Excellence at Pram. Ket Okreku revealed that the vehicles are aimed at improving operational efficiency and supporting football development activities nationwide.
Well, we are extremely grateful to FIFA, led by President Infantino, for the vision to support football via the Forward program. I think that when we speak about the Forward program, Ghana has been a big beneficiary, and we have utilized this program for the benefit of the Ghanaian game. Just about a year ago, we gave away 8 pickups to the leadership of our 8 regional offices with a firm promise that we were going to add up more. These vehicles obviously are used for the development and promotion of football at the grassroots level. I'm extremely happy, and I think that gradually we are laying a solid foundation for development of the Ghanaian game. And I hope that every beneficiary, whether at the regional level, whether from the Technical Directorate, will put these vehicles to its fullest of uses.
GFA President Ket Okreku there. Let's now do some more where former Germany international Gerald Asamoah has urged the Black Stars to urgently improve their defensive organization under new coach Carlos Queiroz. Speaking in an interview with 3 Sports, he emphasized that the Black Stars' main strength is in attack, but warned that their defensive weaknesses remain a major concern that must be fixed quickly.
Look at our team, what we're having now. We have Partey, he's a good player, but he has some issues. What I think is not giving him the confidence to do his game. Okay, against Germany, he was so good. And then let's ask ourselves, Kudus is out. So who are the players to carry this team? And that's the problem you need to ask yourself. And seeing the game in Austria, and I'll never underrate Austria, but it was like a dead team would not present us because we have. It doesn't matter how weak or not good where we are, but we need to present yourself as a nation, not to lose 5-1. I think so 5-1, yeah? 5-1. What are we good in? Are we good in defending or are we good in offensive game? And as I see, we are really good in offensive, so we need to work on our defensive plays. Keeping the 0 is always the best.
Gerald Asamoah there, who is a German international. To some other stories, and Ghanaian supporters planning to follow the Black Stars to the 2026 FIFA World Cup campaign in the United States will face significant transport costs, with a dedicated shuttle service to Gillette Stadium priced at about 1,000 cedis per seat for the group stage meeting with England. Ghana face England on June 23, 2026 in their second Group L fixture at the venue in Foxborough, Massachusetts, which will be branded Boston Stadium for the tournament. Organizers have introduced a structured transport system aimed at managing largely match day crowds, but the pricing has sparked attention among traveling fans. Boston's World Cup host committee has confirmed a bus service branded the Boston Stadium Express which will charge $95 per passenger for a round-trip transfer to and from the stadium. The fare applies uniformly with no concessions for children, elderly supporters, or passengers with accessibility needs. Time to switch scenes to Europe, where it was an action-packed night as the semi-final lineup of the season's Champions League was completed. Arsenal and Sporting CP played out a goalless draw. Kai Havertz's first leg strike proved decisive, sending Arsenal into back-to-back semi-finals. They will now face Spanish side Atletico Madrid in the last four. Arsenal manager Arteta praised his team's historic achievements.
Well, it hasn't been done in 140 years, so that tells you the difficulty of that. The gratitude to all the players, everybody at the club. We have to feel proud. It wasn't perfect. We still have a lot of things to do better, but we are where we want to be. We have earned it. We made it to be there, and I expected that we're going to go through, and they certainly did it, the boys. This league, the schedule that we have takes the hell out of you. And there's no coincidence why we are the only English club to be in the top four. So we need to recognize that as well. As I said before, it's been some difficult days. It's supposed to be like this. It has to be like this. You want to be where we are, you have to go through them. We certainly done it tonight, and we know what's coming on Sunday.
Or Mikel Arteta with the humble brag there. They are the only English side in the Final Four. The headline clash lived up to expectations, delivering a 7-goal thriller. FC Bayern Munich edged out Real Madrid home and away to secure their place. The game, which looked destined for extra time, took a dramatic turn when a late substitute, Edward Camavinga, was sent off after a second avoidable yellow card. It finished 4-3 in Munich, with Bayern advancing to face reigning champions PSG in the semi-finals. Bayern manager Vincent Kompany praised his side's resilience after the game.
My main message was 0-0 is still a good result for us, so it was back to everything even. So I think despite the fact that they were leading 1-0, then we came back. They were leading 2-1, then we came back. They were leading 3-2, then we came back. They never actually leaded the tie. And so from a feeling, I still felt like, okay, it's back to even, and let's go and win the game, and we did it.
That was Bayern Munich manager, I beg your pardon, Vincent Kompany. Now to his opposite number, that's the Real Madrid manager, Alvaro Abelio. He admitted that the red card proved costly for his team.
I think that was a great match, this second leg. We put players like Militao, like Jude Bellingham, like Ferland Mendy, that they couldn't play in the first leg. We scored 3 goals and we had the chances to score some more goals. But I think with the red card, everything was over. It's really unbelievable that you send off a player for this action. I can't believe that, and it's not possible in a play like that, in a match like that you sent off for this. And we feel really upset, really angry, really disappointed, and I think all of this is a little bit unfair.
That was Real Madrid manager. And finally, before we wrap up, the countdown to football's biggest spectacle is well underway, with just 56 days to go until the 2026 FIFA World Cup kicks off. Between now and June, 3 Sports will keep you updated with daily feature stories and countdown coverage as anticipation builds for the tournament in North America. In today's edition, the focus turns to 5-time world champion Brazil's football national team.
The FIFA World Cup, where legends are made and records are written in history. At the top of the all-time scoring chart sits Miroslav Klose with 16 goals, the most in World Cup history. Behind him are icons like Brazil's Ronaldo with 15 and Germany's Gerd Müller with 14, goals that defined eras. Then come the modern greats. Lionel Messi has 13 World Cup goals across 5 tournaments, a testimony to his longevity and class. And Kylian Mbappe, already on 12 goals despite only 2 World Cups, is closing in fast with speed, power and consistency. In 2026, Messi and Mbappe will have the stage to rewrite the record books, to chase closest long-standing mark and etch their names at the top of World Cup lore. In football's greatest tournament, every goal counts and history awaits.
Well, that was our special edition of World Cup in a minute. So from now till the World Cup, we'll be giving you covering different forms of content concerning the World Cup. My name is Akusia AJ. This has been the sports update on Sunrise. Thanks for listening.
The best in the morning is on 92.7 Sunrise on 3FM.
Have you heard the Peduasi Chop Bar Conference is happening? Starting Saturday, 18th April 2026 and continuing every other Saturday. You can enjoy authentic chop bar selections right here at Peduasi Valley Resort. Fufuana, Face the Wall, Abenkwan, Aponchin Kakra, Ebunebunu. We have them all. Also on rotation will be live DJ and cultural troupe performances. Eat, drink, and dance all you want with your family and friends as you enjoy this authentic Peduasi Chop Bar experience. For reservations and enquiries, call 0540-125-555 or 0540-125-554. Peduasi Valley Resort. Live life.
Electric energy. Electric.
Protect yourself from germs and bacteria with confidence. Cleanse hand soap effectively kills 99.9% of germs with every use. Perfect for all your hand washing moments throughout the day. Available in a variety of variants and delightful flavors. Choose Cleanse for yourself, your family, and friends. Make Cleanse your daily essential. The GC brand. It's all about you. This advert is FDA approved.
That's clean soap. Clean.
Chedia Kessia. Electroland Ghana Limited, yeah, Mamo. Chedia Kessia. For our loyal customers, because your loyalty deserves more, yeah, Mamo. Chedia Kessia pa. Big rewards for you and me from Accra to Tamale, all over Ghana. Electroland, yeah, #1. Just buy your favorite Samsung, TCL, Media, and NASCO electronics from any Electroland showroom or authorized reseller store nationwide. Dial *928*8888# or go to register.electrolandraffles.com and enter our weekly and monthly draws and stand a chance to win big. From TVs, ACs, fridges, gas cookers, washing machines, sound towers, mobile phones, and more rewards just for you. Approved by MLA Caritas Platform. Electroland Ghana Limited. Rewarding your loyalty the big way. Terms and conditions apply.
3FM Sunrise. 3FM Morning Show. 3FM 92.7. 3FM, your urban lifestyle radio. 3FM Sunrise. 3FM Morning Show. 3FM 92.7.
Sunrise on 3FM.
Raps up for
Zasho, my family drinks you walk out there. I can't social, mini me, my and Tamunted. Oh, free be baby.
26 past 8 here on the 3FM Sunrise. So listen, if you're coming to Pram Pram, there's a place that you have to be at. Located at Pram Pram, that's where you're supposed to be. Also, if you're coming to Accra, First HR Heights, go on to social media, you find them. I'll share their numbers with you as well shortly. Here on the 3FM Sunrise. You belonging to First HR Hotel, where we focus on three things: peace, people, and quality. It's a serene escape with legendary service and world-class comfort. We're not just a hotel, we are your home for tranquility. 05033559598. That's how you can reach out. 0303 989 737. Alternatively, you can book First HR Heights because we don't just provide a room, we provide a reset. Our guests tell us they feel an immediate sense of peace the moments they walk in. A rare kind of assurance that lets their intentions just melt away. So if you're looking for a sanctuary where the staff genuinely respects your peace and treats you like family, we are your genuine and your only choice. First and only choice. We're located in town, just about 25 minutes drive to Accra Business Center. Call us on 025-606-0665 or 025-607-0666. And we'll be on hand to provide all of the assistance. We're getting into
3FM Sunrise. Watch them, Yana Senya, Nancy, I want my Kaibon, or Hani Sieno, Kumo Akushifu, and I see a bano. Yabuyama Bekafu, be out to them, Akushifu, send a comfort, and my idea. I feel best in a court, and jump. And Yania so quite a fool. Coco, Brodia so Brodia, and the Megan Infinium Yanka.
Listening to Justice Abdullah. We're returning to that conversation as to the pronouncement by the judge, and we'll get onto the telephone lines because we'll speak to a number of private legal practitioners as well. One of such is seated in front of me. He will share his thoughts on the subject matter. But I spoke to Justice Abdullah as a private legal practitioner and a lecturer. Here's what he had to say, and then I'll engage some others for you this morning as well.
The best in the morning is on 92.7 Sunrise on 3FM.
At least not within this period of history, while all the issues about corruption, the rising corruption-related matters and all of that are ongoing, and trying to figure out means of fighting corruption, and this blow comes up at this point in time in our lives. It's very disturbing, particularly also if you relate it to the fight to bring back Ken Oferiatta, which is which the OSP is highly instrumental in that fight. Indeed, it is at the forefront of that fight, and so
Sunrise
this completely takes away
the best in the morning.
a lot from us as people, and it literally gives from the Oferiatta camp a huge leverage over all of us, and possibly a difficulty in even bringing him back. Winning the extradition case before the U.S. court. And so, but without relating it to that, I mean, coming back home, I think that it is also disturbing, particularly because the decision of the High Court almost amounts to the interpretation of the provisions in relation to the Article 88 and also the provisions establishing the OSP. And I thought that if the High Court was minded, it probably could have referred that portion of it to the Supreme Court for interpretation. That would have been ideal from where I stand, because the conduct about the decision as made by the High Court amounts to an interpretation which it does not, I mean, of which it does not have that authority to do so. There is no jurisdiction of the High Court that allows it to interpret provisions of this nature. It can apply, but definitely not to interpret it in the light that it has done at this point. Now, having said that too, you would literally agree with me that the entire setup for the OSP and its machinery, its structures are literally set up for the purposes of these. I mean, from this angle, that is the prosecutorial angle. And so once you take out the prosecutorial authority from it, the entire office becomes a useless entity. And so you will not need that office to even continue in its operations, I mean, going forward, if this decision is allowed to stand. It literally takes away the foundation of the OSP. And the OSP would be useless and meaningless to exist in our books if this decision is out to stay. So on the basis of these, I completely support the decision of the OSP to appeal this decision. And
I would strongly urge all of us to find means of supporting, particularly anti-corruption fighting institutions. Already there is a similar issue brewing up in the Supreme Court on this subject. If this decision had come from the Supreme Court, of course, we would have thrown in the towel and then said, well, maybe let's go back to the drawing board and then see how best we can come back to fight corruption from another angle, or maybe go back to our earlier advocacy, which was that has always been that it should rather be the Attorney General's office that should be decoupled from the Ministry of Justice, so that once you have those two independent independent institutions operating from that angle, one may not necessarily have to be a ministerial position, then we wouldn't have to have this kind of fight today. But today is a big deal.
The point that, look, the court in making this pronouncement lack jurisdiction, what then becomes the use of the OSP's challenge of the reasoning of the court, because there is no authority, no basis upon which the High Court is supposed to be making a pronouncement like this. What then becomes the authority or the basis for which the OSP want to challenge this? Is it to rectify the notion currently in the media space? And also, this will not be binding on other high courts, really. And so what is the point?
Yeah, indeed, it may not be binding on other high courts, but it will be highly influential in changing and in the narrative going forward. And then indeed, other high courts who could be influenced by this. And so, if you do not challenge it and get a firmer authority on this subject, then your continuous existence becomes shaky. And so, and it is the reason you have to challenge it right away. You don't even sit for a minute on such a dangerous precedent being set. Remember, it is a high court. Other high courts may not be bound by it, but they could be influenced and they could be giving decisions questioning your authority in this light. And the moment your authority is questioned, you no longer have any basis to prosecute anyone.
Absolutely. Of critical importance to a lot of people in this conversation about the prosecutorial powers of the OSP, some say that is that case pending before the Supreme Court. Now, considering that the court refused to allow the OSP be a party to the suit, where then lies the ability to provide counter-argument to the court which will matter most? Because when the Supreme Court does make pronouncement on that matter before it, irrespective of whether or not the OSP is successful in its challenge of this High Court ruling, it will matter very little, because what will be decided by the Supreme Court will then be binding. In respect that they don't have a forum there, where leaves counter-arguments in that substantive suit currently before the OSP, considering the AG sides with the plaintiff in that particular matter?
Indeed, you put it rightly. It is difficult to say that the decision of the Supreme Court will come tomorrow or the next day at this point. And so, in view of that, you cannot hold on to your horses saying that because the decision of the Supreme Court is potentially coming very soon, you will not take any decision in respect to the High Court. That would be rather a counterproductive decision to take. You have to take all steps available now until that Supreme Court decision comes. That Supreme Court decision may as well come and not even affect the procedural powers of the OSP. Whether or not the OSP is allowed to even make a case before the Supreme Court. Mind you, the Supreme Court doesn't need the OSP's input necessarily to make a decision, a proper decision in favor of the continuous existence of the OSP. The Supreme Court is allowed to take opinion from everyone and anyone, including amicus. And so, whether or not the OSP being made a party or being allowed to make its position known before the Supreme Court will not necessarily impact the decision that would ultimately come from the Supreme Court. So that's the first thing that we need to know. The second thing that we need to know is that, as I indicated, one does not need to wait for the Supreme Court's decision to appeal this decision. Absolutely. The two can go on simultaneously. And if it turns out that the Supreme Court's decision adversely affects the continuous existence of the OSP and invariably reaffirms the decision as made by the High Court today, then of course any pending appeal becomes immaterial. And at that point, you can then throw in the towel and then take an appropriate decision to address whatever concerns that may exist from that moment.
Help us understand just one more time this matter from the High Court. I've seen a number of reactions already, and you yourself have been corroborating the fact that the court did not have jurisdiction to have taken upon itself the matter to make the pronouncements that it has made. In the jurisprudence, the legal framework within which we work with, what, I don't want to say punishment, but what counters exist for when courts assume jurisdiction and make pronouncements which you are saying they did not have authority to make? What are remedies outside of the appeal, obviously, which you are advising the OSP to undertake?
Indeed, the OSP has two routes to remedy the situation as it exists today. The first one, the most popular, as everybody knows, is the appeal route, the easiest route to take, if you like. There's also a judicial review available to the OSP. The two can go on simultaneously. And indeed, I was strongly urge the OSP to invoke both simultaneously. And it doesn't go against the law to invoke both anyway, just for the purposes of clarity. They can invoke judicial review, questioning, and that would take the OSP straight from the High Court to the Supreme Court without having to go to the Court of Appeal. So straight you jump to the Supreme Court on a judicial review that the High Court did not have any legal basis to make the pronouncement that it did on the basis of, as we said, lack of jurisdiction. And if it is clear on the face of it, because it appears quite clear on the face of it that indeed the High Court doesn't have it. But of course, sometimes until you go into the nitty-gritty, you would never get to know of some of the pitfalls that you may encounter. However, as it stands now, as on the face of it, it does look like the High Court doesn't have jurisdiction. And as on the basis of that, they can mount a judicial review application before the Supreme Court to quash the decision of the High Court as it exists today. And if that succeeds, chances are that the Supreme Court could merge any potential application for judicial review with
which was the point I was going to make, that could that happen, considering, or could that be another means through which the OSP now then becomes a party to that original suit which they were refused initially, if they go through this second route, this judicial review route you're making reference to?
Okay, so since I asked the question on your behalf and I'm giving the answer, I would say that yes, indeed it is available to the Supreme Court to consider both at the same time, not necessarily by merging them. They could consider both at the same time. Sometimes the Supreme Court also operates on purely prudential basis by ensuring that they do not have to replicate their resources when they could merge all and make a decision or a pronouncement that solves all problems or all cases before it. And so it is on the basis of that sometimes they could, rather than saying that, okay, you know what, let's merge these two, which sometimes could not be measurable, they could say that, okay, we are giving a decision in this because this one is right for a decision to be made. And that decision, we would assume that it also encapsulates all the matters in reference to case B, because the matters raised in both cases are germane and are the same, that we believe that the decision in case A would resolve the decision in that matter too. And in that case, when they do that, it turns out that they will dismiss the second case or the third case and refer them to this first one.
Absolutely.
I remember that happening in 2001 thereabout, when Richard Sky filed a suit. There were about 3-4 different suits, one of which was all of which literally surrounded the case of the Deputy Speaker of Parliament being allowed to vote while sitting as a Speaker of Parliament. And all
absolutely.
Yeah, there were similar cases, about 4 or 5 of them. And one of them, which was decided, was Justice Sutherland, Attorney General. And what the Supreme Court did was that the moment they gave that decision, all the other cases were dismissed. Not because they were frivolous cases, but because they had already given their opinion, their decision in the Justice Sutherland, Attorney General case.
Speaking, sharing his thoughts on the subject matter from yesterday. So I'll just walk you through a summary of the AG's argument on the OSP's powers as well. He says that prosecutorial powers of the Republic vest solely in the Attorney General. The OSP Act does not compel the Attorney General to authorize the OSP to prosecute offences. Parliament cannot compel the Attorney General to authorize any person to prosecute an offence, and the OSP Act varies the Attorney General's constitutionally protected prosecutorial powers. Ordinary legislation cannot alter the prosecutorial powers vested in the Attorney General. Prosecutorial powers may not be delegated to a juridical person, is the argument that's been made. But in his defense, the office, in its defense rather, because the office is an institution and then the SP is just an individual. So the office's defense, they say the High Court does not have jurisdiction to in effect strike down part of an act of Parliament as unconstitutional. It is only the Supreme Court of Ghana which can strike down part of an act of Parliament as unconstitutional, and the Office of the Special Prosecutor is taking steps to quickly overturn the decision of the General Jurisdiction Court. Sixtus, we're back on the subject matter from where we left off, and so this is the OSP's own position. But you have the Act. I think we've read the article which gives the AG the powers, and even in his argument, we've kind of read the Constitution, but in a different language based on what it is that he's been saying.
So let's go back to
the OSP's
the AG's position. Let's go back to the AG's position. Let me check something. So it says that the OSP Act varies the Attorney General's constitutionally protected prosecutorial powers, which is also a discussion that has come up time and again, whether an Act of Parliament could amend Article 88 to delegate prosecutorial authority to another institution. That's the legal question there. Can an Act of Parliament, or can Parliament make a law to change a provision of the Constitution, by which change the effect of which change would be to take away some of the powers of the Attorney General and vest it in a different institution, the OSP? That's question number one.
Right.
And in the opinion of the Attorney General, ordinary legislation cannot do that. You cannot use an Act of Parliament to do that. And check the choice of word there. Prosecutorial powers may not be delegated, which is why you cited the example of the police prosecutors, as we call them.
Yeah.
You cited that example. So the position of the AG again is that prosecutorial powers may not be delegated to a juridical person. By virtue of Article 88, the AG again argues that the powers vest solely in the Attorney General. The office of the Attorney General has always been seen as, in our jurisdiction, an office wearing many hats.
Right.
In other jurisdictions, the Attorney General is government advisor, all right. But the Attorney General is equally a very independent person in the discharge of his or her duties. Where the independence would mean that the Attorney General can prosecute appointees for not abiding by the Constitution or other laws. In our jurisdiction, yes, the Attorney General can also prosecute other appointees, sitting appointees. But we have often asked the question, practically, though the Constitution allows or grants the power, practically, is that power exercised? And this is not, again, let me say, this is not a Dominic Ayeni matter.
Right.
It is not a Dominic Ayeni matter. It is not a Kisi Ejabeng matter. It is not the judge of the High Court. It is not her matter.
It's a he, actually.
It's a he.
Yeah.
It's not his matter. Let us, for once, remove NDC MPP from these discussions. So we can... So let me take you straight to the Act. And let's start from the long title. An Act, pay attention to the word too. An Act to establish the Office of the Special Prosecutor as a specialized agency to investigate specific cases of alleged or suspected corruption and corruption-related offenses involving public officers and politically exposed persons in the performance of their functions, as well as persons in the private sector involved in the commission of alleged or suspected corruption and corruption-related offenses. So that's the investigative part that the court mentioned. And again, it cuts out the jurisdiction of the office. If it is not a corruption matter or corruption-related matter, it doesn't come under the OSP.
That's why when we saw in that Cecilia Dapa matter, when it says it bothered on money laundering, referred the case to Iyoko.
To Iyoko, that this is not my portion. Take it to an authority that has. So the OSP has a specific mandate. For which specific mandate, the Act says the first thing it must do is to investigate. Let me continue with the long title. Prosecute these offenses. Prosecute these offenses.
The offenses investigated.
Investigated. The offenses relating to corruption and other related matters. Corruption-related matters. Investigate these offenses on the authority of the Attorney General. Investigate on the authority of the Attorney General. So 3 things we'll pick from here. No, 4 things actually. 1, investigate. 2, prosecute. What are they investigating? Corruption and corruption-related matters. On what authority are they investigating? The authority of the Attorney General. Okay. Let's move on to Section 3 of... No, let's start from Section 2 of the Act. Objects of the office.
That's a portion I want you to read. Then we get onto the phone lines because Counsel Jean-Baptiste Aye just joined us on the phone lines as well.
So A, investigate and prosecute specific cases of alleged or suspected corruption and corruption-related offenses. B, recover the proceeds of corruption and corruption-related offenses. C, take steps to prevent corruption. Go back to A. investigate and prosecute. That has come up again. Let's go for the interview.
Counsel, good morning to you. I trust that all is well.
Yeah, I'm doing very well. And thank you, Mawuena. I hope you are doing well too.
Yes, by the grace of God, we're well as well. We've been taking the time to go through the provisions of the Constitution in relation to the Attorney General, the powers which have been granted unto him, and as well reading the acts, the OSP's acts, specifically the objects, which quite detail the need for him to investigate and then prosecute as well criminal or corruption-related matters, not all criminal matters, corruption-related matters. In light of these two, how do we take what was pronounced upon yesterday by the Leonard High Court Judge, Justice Eugene Nyante Nyedu, the general jurisdiction of the High Court yesterday?
Yes, thank you so much, Mawuena, and then good morning to your listeners. In fact, when I saw the judgment or the ruling, I wasn't too sure if I was reading well, because it's a bit difficult to understand. So I decided to go through and then understand what was really going on. And, high courts, the matter was raised at two different high courts, so the coordinate jurisdiction. But the criminal court decided to wait for the Supreme Court decision on that. But the decision of the General Jurisdiction Court, GJ10, is a bit surprising, because there are certain things that are basic that everyone knows. Number one, a high court cannot make a decision when it comes to a constitutional, or cannot make a decision in respect of a constitutional interpretation. And in this case, whether or not the provision of the act, as in when I say the act, I mean the Special Prosecutor Act, whether or not at this stage the office of the Special Prosecutor has the powers to prosecute. So, the argument is true. Some believe that based on I believe everyone understands, based on the provision of Article 88, that the powers of prosecution are vested in the AG. There's no discussion about that. I think where the discussion is whether or not, in this case, the powers is given just once, such that once those powers have been given to you, then I cannot interfere. You can do whatever you want to do. That's where the issues are. And again, it's basic that you can't use an enactment to amend a provision of the Constitution. The powers given to the AG is a constitutional provision. And the right thing to do, if you think you want to tamper with it, then will be to go first and amend it. But you can't bring an enactment by way of maybe Section 4 of the Special Prosecutor Act, such to amend it, such that we end up having an office of the Special Prosecutor who is independent of the AG. That would be a bit difficult. So, Mawuena, it was very surprising, and I feel that something was wrong with the decision, respectfully.
To the extent that this was done when the criminal division of the High Court, which was looking into the matter, decided to pause and refer the subject matter to not refer, but await the decision of the Supreme Court. There are those who are beginning to read some meanings as to why the general jurisdiction would have been in such a haste to make such pronunciation. Is there a justification for anybody to want to raise those kind of eyebrows as to what all of you lawyers are telling us is a no-go area, and yet a justice of the High Court decides to clothe himself with those powers and proceed on that course of action?
Yes, there's a justification. So anyone who will be surprised or will be more or less troubled by that judgment, that person will be right. Because the other court. And right now, you see, the issue we are having now is that two different high courts. And a decision of a high court, one high court, is not binding on the other high court. And if you listen to the office of the special prosecutor, they say that they will go ahead. And the reasons being two. Number one, there's another high court that has more or less been on their side. And then number two, they believe that a high court cannot more or less by way of interpretation or so come up with a decision that number one is even before the Supreme Court, and number two that has to do with the constitutional interpretation which is left solely to the Supreme Court. So yes, there's a justification for people to be worried about the decision, and I'm still at a loss that what could have happened such that the court will make that kind of decision, especially when the AG is not complaining. The AG has not come to say that the office of special prosecutor is prosecuting without their powers, and in law we call something presumption of regularity. So the presumption is that once the AG is not complaining, then there's nothing wrong. But if AG is not complaining, and then it's more or less like, with the greatest of respect, the court seems to be descending into the arena of conflict, or be taking side and be playing a role of a party when the party has not even asked the court to do so. So that is it. But by our training, usually when this happens, we like to refer to the court, not to the individual of the judge, but the court, because it's a decision of the court. So that's why I keep on talking about the court, not the specific judge in the matter.
No, not the specific judge in the matter. Considering everything that is playing out and this determination which is yet to be made at the substantive court clothed with the powers, meaning the Supreme Court, that application is expected to be heard somewhere later today, tomorrow. But it goes to the heart of the ability of the OSP to operate with a free hand, and also the perception about the fight against corruption. In terms of everything that we've seen, this challenge as to whether or not it has prosecutorial powers, whether or not it is independent of the Attorney General, at a time like this, where do you think it leaves us in the fight against corruption and the perception that it comes along with as well?
I think it does not leave us in a very good place, because, look, corruption has always been a campaign message for all the parties. And any party that will be able to fight corruption, in my mind, will be able to secure a victory, if you like. And I believe the job of the courts is to help effectuate justice or fight corruption as well. But if we are now in a situation where some think that the court is aiding, the fight, that's what some think. And, well, everyone is right to have their own determination of the matter. But some think that the court is aiding in fighting against corruption. It does not leave us at a very good place at all. So, for me, well, and then the other issue is, I understand from the reading of the special prosecutor, he seems to be taking a position that he will continue with their cases and go ahead with their cases, that the public more or less should, if you like, should not take that judgment to be is that they will relent or they will stop their work. But again, it comes out with a different school of thought, because every lawyer knows that when a court makes a decision, that even if the decision is wrong, it's binding until it's overturned. However, if it's a judgment per incuriam, then the argument is that we don't go by it. So will the special prosecutor continue? If it does, what will be the effect of it? Or will the special prosecutor stop and wait for the court to make a judgment? I think this was uncalled for, if you ask me respectfully. And at this time, this shouldn't be happening.
Well, on the OSP, they've been sharing on social media this morning that they will be returning to the High Court. There's another High Court. So they put out a statement today that Republic versus Issa Seidu and 3 others rice scandal case, that the Office of the Special Prosecutor will return to the High Court Criminal Division 1 this morning for the hearing of a bail application concerning the second accused person. At yesterday's sitting, the court was informed that the second accused person had been arrested at Kuruka International Airport while attempting to leave the country without permission in breach of his bail conditions. They appear to be going on with what has been their mandate before this pronouncement was made. There are those who say that not appealing it just as yet could raise matters of credibility. I've heard you on the pair in Curium that, if it is a nullity to start off with, then they should be able to proceed and go about their duty. You don't see any challenges for them here today?
I don't think there will be any challenge. In my mind, I think they should be able to continue the case with the jurisdiction. But, of course, if the case were to be before the same judge, the GJ10, then it will be a bit difficult for OSP to continue the prosecution. But because the case is not before GJ10 and is rather before a different court, and I just told you that when it comes to high courts, they are of the same level, coordinate level. So it's not binding on the other court. This morning, in my mind, the special prosecutor should be able to continue the matter before the criminal court. But obviously, it doesn't speak well of the judiciary, and it doesn't speak well when it comes to the fight against corruption, and it doesn't speak well when it comes to fairness and justice. When seems to be going against each other, and for the layperson, they think that the law is clear. So how come you present the same fact before 2 judges, 2 different courts, and then they all seem to be going different direction and all that? So the special prosecutor should be able to continue. If I were him, I would go ahead with the case.
On that score, a simple argument can be made that the persons who the OSP will be seeking to have remanded, one of such who attempted to break their bail bond per what it is that he put up on social media, they could object to his appearance, considering the fact that another high court, yes, they don't have, it's not that decision is not binding, but they could argue in court today that his powers to prosecute are being questioned, and so they object to him being present in the court and wanting to have their clients remanded.
Yeah, Mawuena, the line was going a bit bad, but if I hear you well, you are saying that they could argue in court based on the judgment given by GJ10.
Yes.
Yes. Well, if they argue that will be a matter before the judge for the judge to decide. Because, as I said, a decision of the court, even if it's wrong, is still in effect. So, in this case, the decision of the criminal court is that they are not suspending the matter, or they are not, they are going ahead. It stands. So, if you have issue with it, you make an application before the court, the other party will respond to the application, then the court will rule. But you can't just stay in the house and say that because there's a decision, you will not appear before the court. If you do that, for those of us who do criminal cases, we always advise our clients never to try that, because the court can issue a bench warrant and your case will become even worse.
Right.
So if they believe in that, they can make that case before the court, and the court will make a decision, and then they will move on. But I expect the court to carry on with the matter.
Absolutely. I'm going to get into a bit more of hypotheticals right now, per what is expected before the Supreme Court and a decision that could be taken. Now, should we have, and I say should we have advisedly, a situation where the Supreme Court agrees with Noah Damte and the Attorney General, considering that the SP is not a party to the suit, and yes, arguments have been made that they don't need the presence of the SP to arrive at a conclusion which is different from that which has been canvassed by Noah Damte and the Attorney General. But should we have a situation where the Supreme Court and the justices there agree with the argument put before them, what then becomes of the prosecutions currently being done by the OSP?
Okay, yes, should the Supreme Court agree with the reliefs of the plaintiff, which, per my understanding, I think they should, would that affect the investigation, the prosecution, and all that the OSP has done?
Investigations, I'm sure, can proceed. Investigations may proceed,
what I was going to say.
But the prosecution is where there are concerns about as to what happens to the prosecutions, because he has a number of cases in court, one of such which he's returning to court today for.
Yes. So in my mind, it won't bring to a nullity all the way that the AG, the special prosecutor, has done. No, I don't think so. But what it will mean is that at every stage, the Attorney General can step in and stop the OSP when it comes to investigation. So they will continue with because the issue has to do with whether or not the office of the OSP is independent of the AG. And then if the court rules that it's not, then all the prosecution, all the trial, or the cases that the OSP is doing will still go ahead. But in this case, the AG could intervene, just like Yoko and the rest. Their cases will still go on, but it will not affect that. But again, it brings a different question, because when you are interpreting an act, you look at the purpose. And the purpose for the establishment of the AG is to remove it under the control of the purpose for the establishment of the OSP is to remove it under the control of the AG, because the argument has been that the AG could not prosecute his own colleagues, people that he sits in the parliament or he sits in the cabinet with. That's why we came out with the AG. We came out with the OSP. But if we decide that no, the OSP will take authority or will take directive from the AG, then in this case, that's where people will be asking, did we go or did we come? Because it will bring us to square one, and that will lead to just a multiplication of functions and with not results. So, Mawuena, I think that the case will still continue, but the changes that will come is that the AG at any stage could come in and stop the OSP at any level, or could give direction to OSP to do ABCD, and OSP will be under obligation to do it. That will be the change that will happen.
I want to hold you just briefly on the line and have Christian Malmhesi as well join us. He's a private legal practitioner as well. Counsel, I appreciate you as well for joining us on the telephone line this morning. I'm sure your reaction will be no different from the many that we've been hearing as to the surprise as to the basis upon which the High Court judge reached that decision. I've been looking around and asking, and for a lot of people, for the lay people who are listening, they ask, so what happens to a judge when they make a mistake like this? Is it just allowed to go? It's one of the many questions that has been asked. I'll ask you that question later, but I want to pick it from what happens to the powers of the OSP, considering what has played out in the last few days, the perception which now will be circulated in and around the office in itself when they do begin to make appearances, one of such which is expected today, vis-a-vis this ruling and pending matters before the Supreme Court, which they are not a party to and there are no counter-arguments to as well.
Good morning to you, my brother, and thanks for having me. And good morning to my colleague as well. The point is, indeed, this whole thing borders on interpretation. And if you look at the case of Republic versus High Court, first party ruling, Justice Atuguba made a profound statement when it comes to the jurisdiction of the High Court in dealing with interpretation of statutes and even constitutional provision. Indeed, the Supreme Court is vested with interpretation of constitutional matters. However, it says that in that particular case, Justice Atuguba indicated that when it comes to basic constitutional interpretation, the High Court can proceed to make that interpretation. But the test case or the litmus case that Justice Atuguba indicated or opined in that case is that where the constitutional provision is ambiguous and admits different meanings and interpretation as of right, the High Court ought to refer that matter to the Supreme Court for interpretation. So the question that we should be affected with is, as the matter went before the High Court, in looking at section 4.2 of the OSP Act, vis-a-vis that of Article 88, the dictates of the test and contest ambiguous that admits different meanings, which would create the reason for the referral. If in the mind of the judge, the test and contest, the plain language, refers nothing more than what it is, then in the law of interpretation, the High Court would be said to have made the right call. But if there is room for ambiguity, such that the test and contest gives meaning which will be at variance, then whatever step the High Court took, we can conclude that it was erroneous. Now, for me, I am of the opinion that the text as Sixtus was reading, I do not have the act here, so I cannot quote it verbatim.
I have.
Can you read it?
I have the object
so that the listeners can follow my argument.
Section 2 of the OSP Act 2017, Act 959, object of the office. So 2, the object of the office is to A, investigate and prosecute specific cases of alleged or suspected corruption and corruption-related offenses. B, recover the proceeds of corruption and corruption-related offenses. And C, take steps to prevent corruption. That is to the object of the OSP Act.
Now, please proceed. He read the other part that deals with the prosecutorial thing.
Establishment of the Office of the Special Prosecutor, Section 1. Section 1.1, there is established by this Act a body corporate with perpetual succession to be known as the Office of the Special Prosecutor. 2, for the performance of its function, the office may acquire and hold mover. Okay, I'll skip that. Then I will jump to 3. To achieve the object, the office shall A, investigate and prosecute. So Section 3 of the OSP's Act, functions of the office. Section 3.1, to achieve the object, the office shall A, investigate and prosecute cases of alleged or suspected corruption and corruption-related offenses under the Public Procurement Act 2003, Act 663. B, investigate and prosecute allegations of corruption and corruption-related offenses under the Criminal Offences Act. C, I'm not going to read all of it. C as well, investigate and prosecute alleged or suspected corruption and corruption-related offenses involving public officers, politically exposed
and then the part
persons.
That talks about, the part that deals with the Attorney General, that's where I want you to go to.
And persons in the private sector involved in the commission of the office. The bits that talks about the Attorney General involving politically exposed persons. Let me get that for you briefly with respect to.
So okay, while you take time to get that, now you would realize that just from what you have read, and if you read further down, the OSP is vested with prosecutorial powers. We shouldn't deviate from that. Now, the point is, these prosecutorial powers is subjugated to the Attorney General. That is so, because even in the Act, it says that it has to procure authority. Now, it basically means that whenever it does all its investigative works and it's seeking to prosecute, it needs to get clearance, leave, as we say, permission, or notify the Attorney General that we have done ABCD, we are proceeding to court. So give us that leave so that we go and prosecute.
Let me read.
This is not new.
Councillor, I have that portion you're asking for.
Please read it for
that's
us.
a long title.
Appreciate it.
The 959th Act of the Parliament of the Republic of Ghana, and says an act to establish the office of the Special Prosecutor as a specialized agency to investigate specific cases of alleged or suspected corruption and corruption-related offences involving public officers and politically exposed persons in the performance of their functions, as well as persons in the private sector involved in the commission of alleged or suspected corruption and corruption-related offences, prosecutes these offences on the authority of the Attorney General and provide for related matters.
It's specific. It's specific. The OSP has been vested under statute with that prosecutorial power, but is subject to the Attorney General, because the powers of the OSP is deemed as subjugation of authority, that it is operating under it. The OSP aspect can at all times prosecute. If you go down to section 4.2, it further says how it must seek leave and all of that. So now the point is that prosecutorial powers has never been taken away from the OSP. I've heard a number of, which I humbly believe they are quite misleading legal arguments. That says that by this, the OSP's prosecutorial powers has been taken away, and it is a sad day for the fight for corruption. And no, that is muddying the waters and misleading public education. That is not the point. The point is the court is only trying to, or the act is stressing on a legal procedure, and that procedure is what it seems as though is backfiring against the OSP. That the OSP didn't exercise that little step in seeking clearance or leave from the Attorney General in order to carry out with its prosecutorial agenda. And I believe that going forward, that should be done, because the fight against corruption is a collaborative effort, and that is what I see the framework of the Constitution embedded in it. So, for anyone to say that indeed the procedural powers has been taken away is quite misleading. And then my final point is that, yes, it is quite sad that this has happened. Indeed, we shouldn't see or have the perception as though the AG and the OSP belong to different fields. It should be that they all stand on one field fighting corruption. Unfortunately, this has happened. But the point that is according to the case that I mentioned, and there are other litmus test cases like the Mawuena case, and other cases that the Supreme Court has strenuously dealt with when it comes to jurisdiction as to interpretation of constitutional provisions and statutes, and that which affects the High Court in interpretation. And the Supreme Court indicated that if the litmus test is not established, then it would mean that any constitutional provision, any word of provision which does not require interpretation, which is not ambiguous and does not admit to a differential of meaning, will come to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will be inundated with or overwhelmed with a lot of matters. So the exercise of wisdom probably would be that while there is a matter already at the Supreme Court which is dealing with the same case, the High Court could have exercised that discretion to prefer or stay proceedings for the court at the apex to deal with it. But it also does not preclude the High Court. When the High Court is of the conclusive opinion that it is not one of ambiguity and does not admit to differential in terms of admitting to various meanings.
Let me come to the both of you in concluding on these arguments. That can we say all of what it is that was seen play out can be attributed to perhaps the lack of the OSP to have landed a major conviction, which could have, in the minds of a lot of people, dispelled all of these conversations about prosecutorial powers and all of that. There's a select group of individuals who are of the opinion that, well, we've given the office some long room up to a point where we would have expected major convictions, which would have even convinced all of the people of Ghana to back the office at a time like this. We haven't seen that. And so even now, a lot of people are not even minded to want to participate in this debate and push for this independence which the OSP is seeking. I'll start off with you, Councilman Hesse, and then Jean-Baptiste will come in last. Hello? Council, can you hear me? Well, it does appear that both of them cannot hear me just as yet. Councilman Hesse, can you hear me, please? Council Baptiste Ayaja, can you hear me, please?
Yes, I can hear you, Mawuena.
Okay, so on that question on if all of this, to an extent, anybody would say, had they landed a major conviction, perhaps we would have quieted the storm as to independence and all of that. They haven't done enough to prove to people that they are going to do a good enough job. And so even if these matters are coming up, let's look into it properly. Is there any room for such an argument?
Personally, I don't think there's any room for that argument. Of course, I have my personal sentiment when it comes to the working of the office in respect of whether or not we are having value for money. But in the case that we are dealing with, I'm not too sure how prosecution or conviction, securing conviction has to play. Maybe if there's anything that will have to play, maybe a seeming, maybe a friction between the office of the special prosecutor and the attorney general. If you remember, Honorable Ken Oforiatta case where the AG was asking for the docket and we heard the docket were not sent. It's like there's this back and forth that seems to suggest in the public, in the eye of the public, as if there's a power play where there's a suspicion or there's, this understanding that the OSP is being reluctant or deciding when to send what. So, for me, maybe that could account for the situation that we have at this moment. But when it comes to conviction, I'm not too sure about that. And I think that they should be able to work together. And if they are working together, this shouldn't be a major issue before the courts.
Finally, on that Oforiatta subject matter, because I asked a question first of what happens to prosecutions should the Supreme Court rule in a particular direction, what happens to that extradition attempt as well if it were to go in that same direction? Just briefly.
Oh, no, it has no effect because you see, we need to understand how extradition works. Extradition works through the AG, the Attorney General. It's the Attorney General that does the work. So even though the investigation and everything may have been done by the Office of the Special Prosecutor, when it comes to the authority in the U.S., the only entity that they know, so to speak, is the AG. So it has no effect at all on that work because it's done by the AG and AGC has the power. So this decision will not alter or change anything in respect of the extradition of Oforiatta.
Counsel, I appreciate you very much this morning for speaking to us.
Thank you, Mawuena.
That's private legal practitioner and law lecturer the University of Professional Studies, John Baptist Ayaja, speaking to us this morning on what has become a notable subject matter for conversation this morning here on the 3FM Sunrise and across the length and breadth of the country as well, with respect to details from that High Court decision from yesterday. Facebook and other social media handles. Let us know what you think as well. I'm going to read a number of them. This one by Kofi Bento is a regular these days on Key Points here on 3FM and on TV3. He says the law has been used to deliver a huge blow to the fight against corruption. OSP neutered. I can't wait for constitutional review. Meanwhile, those being prosecuted have a new case to make, he says. And he answered, the court which sought to overreach the Supreme Court must be called to order. Why didn't the judge defer to the Supreme Court? Is he taking a cue that certain foul winds are blowing? Why does he feel so free to be so brazen? He asks. Professor Kweku Asare, known as Kweku Azar, also reacted to the development. Says no high court can strip the OSP of prosecutorial power. The OSP is here to stay, and if you know him very well, he ends with Daye. Professor H. Kwesi Prempe is the boss of CDD. He says, Mr. Special Prosecutor, please don't appeal and don't resign. Oh, don't even fight it in the media. Relax, Kran. You and your staff should just sit tight and collect your pay and perks and spend your budget as planned, okay? That too count as public service in Ghana. Don't kill yourself over this. It's a very interesting way he decides to type yourself. Country broke or country no broke, we all day inside. And equally, of course, he adds.
necessary kakra, ne won't kona dear.
Atuguba spoke to my colleague Beatrice Sowa on this particular subject matter. It could be easily the mind's eye as to what possibly we could have the Supreme Court say in terms of a decision on the matter. Here's what he told Beatrice yesterday after that honorific lecture by the UPSA to Chachu Chikata.
That determines constitutionality.
Friends from GNPC.
But it's not so straightforward because where the matter is straightforward, the court
from the Oxbridge Club
might apply the Constitution. There's difference between applying the Constitution and enforcing the Constitution. It's a technical lesson.
And immediately after that, we will have the CEO.
And unless I see the proceedings, I can determine whether what the judge did fitted into application of the Constitution or enforcement, which belongs to the Supreme Court. What the court has done, and what I've read in the papers, is to take away the prosecution powers from the OSP. But the investigative power, the power to investigate, I don't know what starts upon. So long as the investigative powers have not been struck down, maybe those can continue. The High Court decision is not final. I think there's an appeal also. They can question it in the Supreme Court. Until the Supreme Court finally determines, we can't say that it's over.
You were Speaker of Parliament, is it not? Respectfully.
Yes, what?
You were Speaker of Parliament, but you think that the OSP, I mean the Office of Special Prosecutor, has outlived its usefulness, or at the time you had reason to preside over the business of having this bill passed into law?
Looking at what is happening and the flagrant abuse of human rights, and also the fact that I would prefer that existing institutions are strengthened rather than having multiplicity of them with all manner of problems for us. Go and look for the man in this particular office. No, he's not with us now. He's with another organization and so forth. What is this? And I'm saying that we have had strong prosecutors before. If you ask lawyers who are old enough, they will tell you about men like Egbeta. Therefore, if you look at the benefit of hindsight, we better go and do Sankofa and strengthen the office of the DPP, Director of Public Prosecutions, and then do things straight and right and according to the true tenets of the law. That will benefit us, I believe, because they have got pride of ancestors, they have got a tradition, they have got the best practices, and the best practices must be maintained. They must be retooled. They must be strengthened as an office to help do justice in this country. Rather than we put an office up today, tomorrow we change the name, another time we set up another one, and sometimes we don't even know which organization should investigate that. And sometimes there's a clash with regard to jurisdiction and powers. It appears everyone now wants to show how far it can also stretch its powers. We have to rationalize things and strengthen our institutions.
I think it's premature to call for the closure of that office. The unique thing about that office is it is the only anti-corruption agency that has prosecutorial powers to be able to prosecute themselves without going through the Attorney General. And so people had mistrust with the Attorney General because the Attorney General normally is a member of government and is a minister of state. And so they believe that the Attorney General will be very reluctant to prosecute his own. But if there's an independent office like the Office of the Special Prosecutor, it won't matter who you are. So I think we should give them a little time. Of course, people want to see, more prosecutions and more results. And so I'll just urge the OSP to speed up, some of these investigations and, show people that the office is still very relevant.
That's the President of the Republic, President John Dramani Mahama. Before him was Speaker Michael Quay, who oversaw the passage of the OSP Act, Act 959, which is now a subject of debate. We'll go for a break. When we return, we'll take all of this home, right? Stay with us. This is the 3FM Sunrise.
Have you heard? The Peduasi Chopba Conference is happening. Starting Saturday, 18th April 2026.
It's not a football game, but yeah, today's proceedings. So, 6, we're back to it all. After all is said and done, it does suggest that this may may, just may, not go as planned in terms of how the conversations are going. To an extent, for persons who even partook in the exercise, Michael Kwe coming back to say, look, we may have gotten it wrong, then perhaps all of that will crystallize into some decision of some sort which might not be too great for the independence of the Office of the Special Prosecutor, at least from all of the opinions which we've sampled here on the show this morning.
No, I think that this is just the first step. At least we are all agreeable that the decision was in haste. The learned trial judge could have referred that bit of it to the Supreme Court. But of course, as to whether you have the power to interpret or not comes down to that's the High Court judge. Whether the High Court judge can interpret a provision comes down to a number of factors. I think it was Senior Mam Hesi who laid down those exceptions.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I mean, that's the reason we have appeal processes. We have the remedies like certiorari. So the OASP can take this up. And I'm happy to see that quite a good number of learned friends are urging the OASP to take up the matter. And this is not because people like Kisia Jabeng. No, it's because of the institution. So I keep saying that let us decouple the issues. Let us separate the issues. Understand why we are advocating for something. It's not about long before Kisia Jabeng is gone, long after he is gone, the office will still be there. And maybe some of the people shouting crucify him now will change their minds then. So this is a matter that should concern every single individual in this country who is interested in the fight against corruption, who wants to see a change in how public officers conduct themselves, how our party politics particularly and governance is conducted. There's a matter that should interest all of us. So I will join voice with all those urging the Office of the Special Prosecutor to take this matter up. Let's let the Supreme Court look into it so that we can have a conclusion that
it's been in the offing for a very long time.
A long time. A conclusion that at least protects the office. And that's also a wake-up call for us to relook at the independence of the Special Prosecutor. How do we cement it? Can we have a mention of it in the Constitution as we undertake the amendments? I think it's one of the proposals that the current SP himself made. I think he had audience with the Constitution Review Committee at the time.
Yes, I think in recent times as well he's been speaking at
yes, a CDD platform. Yes, and he reiterated it's something he keeps talking about. So let us begin thinking about how to constitutionally entrench that office, the Office of the Special Prosecutor, so that we don't see this thing happening again. Whether we like it or not, corruption is here with us. How do we fight it? Is a question that must be answered, and it must be fought with clear, standardized procedure, and the weapons must be armed. You cannot have an institution that is investigating, and the decision to prosecute lies with the person that you want the institution to be independent from. So that if the executive acting through the Attorney General says, don't prosecute this matter, who are you to prosecute it? They will sack you the following day. We all know the reality. We all understand the practicality of our politics. So we cannot play the ostrich. We can't pretend that, nobody can do this or nobody can do. Yes, the current Attorney General might be fair-minded, might be focusing only on justice. His interest might be that if the letter and the spirit of the law must be followed, and that is what must happen. So the current Attorney General might not have a problem lending or reviewing dockets that come from the special prosecutor and then okaying them to go. But what happens if you have a different Attorney General who disagrees with the office of the special prosecutor, or a different Attorney General who even disagrees with the person of the special prosecutor? Then what happens? Personal conflicts will come in the way of the work, and you will see that they will be disagreeing and nothing will happen. There's a reason Martin Amidu was widely acclaimed as the founding special prosecutor, because we all know he's a no-nonsense man. We all know that he speaks his mind. We all know that he is principled. We all know that he is somebody who will not stand wrong, who will not stand corruption. And so when his name came up across the board, acclaimed, everybody was okay with him. But will we always find somebody like Martin Amidu? Even he who was acclaimed eventually fell out with the administration of the day. So there are factors that we cannot control. So the only way to guarantee will be to ensure that the office of the special prosecutor has a mention in the Constitution, so that the powers of the special prosecutor are clearly separated and distinct from those of the Attorney General's department and the Attorney General, so that we don't see these conflicts happening.
Absolutely. Sixtus, with that one. It will get us into birthdays. A number of individuals celebrating their birthdays today as well.
3FM Sunrise.
Daybreak again.
Sunrise on 3FM.
A happy birthday to Wisdom Safo with us here at 3FM and TV3. Is a man you don't find a lot of pictures of him, but I'll get one up and we'll do that for him.
Charlie, but the April ones we are plenty. April ones in this house. I mean, maybe if you are not born in April, you won't get a job.
There's a picture of him on TV right now as we speak. Wisdom Safo. Of 3 News Research.
This photo is a lie.
Oh, he took this picture
when he was 10 years old.
No, can't you see a picture of the newsroom behind?
Yes, I can see, but the photo has been AI'd.
Oh.
Wisdom. I see he looks like 17 years old in this photo.
Fresh and dandy.
Kunzo says Wisdom is not fresh like this.
So a happy birthday to Wisdom Safo.
A bright young researcher.
Absolutely.
Yeah, doing great. Does
a lot of fantastic work.
Yeah. Hardworking.
And very hardworking as well. And so we pray for you. We're wishing you a fantastic new year filled with God's goodness and grace. Enjoy this new year. Now I'll get into the other birthday messages, right? The other birthday messages that we have for the morning. And Mrs. Esinam Isuman, Blessed Assurance Saloon, CEO inside Achimota. It's from your brother, Obi Adi, who's the founder of Air Talk Ghana Limited. Says he wants to wish you a happy, glorious birthday on a day like this. Wishing you a day filled with love, God's grace and blessings. Happy birthday to you, Mrs. Esinam Isuman. Also, a happy birthday to Deacon Kweku Opoku Ajiman, young lovely boy. Grow in wisdom and in stature. From your mom, Grace, your brother, President Dario, and the entire family. Deacon, happy birthday to you from all of us. From all of us here in the Media General Newsroom English brand. Happy birthday to you, Deacon. That's Grace Hamajiman's second son, actually.
We can see.
And so a happy birthday to him as well. Happy birthday to Professor Bafo Ajimandia. That's his birthday as well, right? Okay, I get the indication it's not. So to Deacon, happy birthday to you, Deacon. Enjoy this new
So the
age.
name is Deacon?
Yes.
His life is being prophesied into.
He's
Deacon
Kweku Opoku Ajiman. Grow in wisdom and in stature. From your mom, Grace, your brother, President Dario, and the entire
brother is
family.
called President Dario.
No, he's called Dario, but he's the boss of the bosses, so they call him President Dario as well. Happy birthday as well to Mrs. Jennifer Watson. Right, Jennifer Watson. Enjoy in bliss and in wealth from the entire family to you. Happy birthday to you as well. Then Wisdom Safo. A happy birthday to you, big man. Continue to grow in divine grace and wisdom and enjoy this new age. Sixtus, what would you say about wisdom? This wisdom.
This looks raw enough.
So you don't want the man beautified. You want him.
Baby, he still has a baby face.
Yeah.
He still has a baby face.
Well. That's our show for you this morning. We're back again, God willing, tomorrow with another exciting edition of the show. Big thanks to all of the hands. Edith on the streams, Fredo Kunzo Tiani, Sixtus Don Ullo, DJ Phil, and all of you who do the tuning in, all of our guests as well who join us to help break down some of the matters. We're thankful to you. And we're back again, God willing, tomorrow. Like I said, great music. And then the news review comes your way. Stay safe.